Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another round of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 5 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. And today we look back at round number 12 of the 13 round season calendar at Watkins Glen International in the American state of New York. And well, what a circuit to go racing at for the final feature race round of the season in terms of our official Alpha Challenge rounds, while our drivers will be taken to the circuit once again for a single race tonight on the schedule before they set themselves up for the season finale in a week's time. It is the penultimate round, everything is on the line, and this circuit is one circuit where we could see many a championship contention spoiled and many a rise to the occasion and everything in between. But we'll have to dissect that as the time winds on and we get ready to go racing once again with our schedule as follows. Times in British Summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1 at UTC +1. Our schedule is as follows. In just under 14 minutes time, we'll be going into our final qualifying session of our Alpha Challenge round series, and that'll be 15 minutes in length with all of our drivers out of the circuit looking to set their best possible times to set themselves up well on the grid. After that, we'll be transitioning straight away over to the gridding process for the purposes of our one and only race tonight, and that is the final Alpha feature race, 60 minutes in duration, as is the golden standard, with that mandatory pit stop thrown in for good measure, and who will come out on top come the end of the 60 minutes plus that final lap, we will have to wait and see. This broadcast, of course, being brought to you as a post-round broadcast, with the racing having occurred earlier on in the week, as of Monday, the 3rd of October, where we're bringing it to you as if it were live on Saturday, I should say, the 8th of October. It would have been Sunday, the 9th of October, but due to scheduling, we've had to bring it forward to the Saturday. But all the same, as our ladies and gentlemen get ready to go racing, we're looking forward to it, of course, and this broadcast is being brought to you on two media platforms for your viewing pleasure. Firstly, on YouTube at youtube.com, you just need to search for TX141TX, alternatively Paul Walsh, or if you're more of a Twitch user, you can go to twitch.tv/TX141 and tune in there. Now, who is TX141 or who is Paul Walsh? Well, it is I, your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Brit of the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and we'll be bringing you all your racing action all the way through to the conclusion next week as our drivers get themselves set to wrap up the season on, hopefully for all of them, a high. But of course, there's always going to be trials, tribulations, positives and disappointments, no matter how it goes, but it's a hard-fought championship. And well, speaking of hard-fought, let's take a look at the calendar as it stood and what is still to come. And so we can see now that we're almost at the very bottom of the Season 5 schedule, where 13 rounds and there can only be one winner come the end of it. And well, Watkins Glen today, and then in a week's time we'll be going racing at the Road Atlanta circuit for our special challenge round. That's why it's highlighted in pink, because it marks a special challenge. We don't know all the specific details as of yet. Well, actually, secretly I do, but I'm not going to reveal them just yet. You'll have to wait until we go for the broadcast in a week's time to find out more. But I can tell you what's in store is going to be an absolutely splendid setup to wrap things up at a circuit that takes no prisoners. But today, as of Watkins Glen, the focus being on our drivers looking to deliver 60 minutes of racing action and come out on top. But before all of that, of course, we've had a long journey to go through. We started off back on the 11th of July in the United States of America, in Detroit at the Belle Isle Street circuit, where we saw for our first Alpha round, our first feature race round, it all kick off in absolute style with plenty of battling up and down the field, many a driver making contact with the wall and many a driver looking to use strategy to their advantage. We then made our way from Detroit all the way over to California for the Laguna Seca circuit, or the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca as it's known in full, in Monterey County. And on the 18th of July we saw 3 sprint races, where in our first sprint race round it was full of racing action across all 3 races, and indeed there was no ability to take a brief breath before going once again. That's how intense the action was. Then we made our way across the Pacific Ocean to Fuji Speedway in Japan on the 25th of July, and there we saw a mix-up in the field in our second Alpha round of the season, where it was the case that a good number of drivers who had just joined the grid were able to spring a few surprises, particularly Hendricks. Then in round number 4, on the 1st of August, we made our way across to the United Kingdom for the Alton Park circuit, indeed synonymous with British Touring Car Championship, and there we saw many a battle go on in the sprint races at Alton Park, and a few surprises in store, and many a car with a crumpled bumper and also a crumpled door. Then round number 5, we continued our tour of continental Europe by heading to Italy for the Monza Circuit, and there was no drama, Monza Turn 1, but there was drama, Monza Lap 2, and that drama really shook up the field on the 8th of August before we made our way to Austria for the Red Bull Ring on the 15th of August for perhaps 3 of our tightest ever sprint race rounds that we've ever seen in the history of the Alpha Touring Challenge, and particularly in all 3 races. There were battles all the way from the start to the end, and if I do remember correctly, in race number 2, we did happen to see almost 6 wide into turn 1, and how they all survived, I don't know. I still relive it every day in my sleep, but I can tell you one thing, it will never go away how spectacular it was. Then we made our way on the 22nd of August to Imola, returned to Italy for another classical sprint race, well, sorry, not a sprint race, a feature race there, and a circuit which sees our drivers push it to the full, indeed on the straights and also through the chicanes. And then we made our way back to United Kingdom for the Donington Park circuit for another 3 sprint rounds back on the 29th of August before heading all the way across the South American continent for the Interlagos circuit to wrap up the first half of the season. That was round 9 on the 5th of September. We then took a week's break before bringing our way back to the schedule on the 19th of September with round number 11 at the Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, also known as Motorsport, for our final sprint race round of the season. We had our final 3 sprint races, and there we saw plenty of battle, and indeed a huge shift in championship momentum between the 2 major championship contenders overall and in the Alpha class of Franz Washing and Robert Abrams, where Robert Abrams really having a dismal day, and one to forget, Franz Washing by comparison having an absolutely brilliant day. And that's really just continued the narrative over the previous round at Mid-Ohio, the course, of course, located in the United States of America state of Ohio, where at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course, we saw Franz Washing hold on to a spectacular victory versus what was Logan McKinsey, and, well, Robert Abrams just not able to take the fight to Franz Washing, and how that has changed up the championship is now Franz Washing is your championship leader going into tonight. He has taken that momentum forward, and he leads the championship by a margin of only 10 points, and the question is, can Robert Abrams fire back tonight at Watkins Glen? That will be the ultimate challenge, and will it go down to the wire at Road Atlanta? Because, of course, there's one big permutation coming out of this round. The final round of the season at Road Atlanta cannot be dropped. Drop scores are affecting this championship, and the final round score cannot be dropped, which means our drivers are running out of time in order to set up their scores and drop certain scores out of their overall account, and we'll have to wait and see who comes away successfully at Watkins Glen with the best possible score. But thinking about Watkins Glen, let's talk a little bit more about it specifically. The Watkins Glen International Circuit, located near the village of Watkins Glen in the state of New York in the United States of America. This circuit is widely considered to be the birthplace of post-war road racing in the United States of America, having formally opened all the way back in 1956, previously being raced out on a street circuit, not a formal circuit, being raced there for approximately 10 years, but in 1956, formally opened as a circuit and a permanent race course, and since then it has seen multi-national, indeed international series take place over the course of the circuit. Formula 1 making its way there in the 70s for 20 years or so, and now whilst Formula 1 doesn't race there, we still see year in, year out, plenty of series race at Watkins Glen, including but not limited to the GT Challenge America Series, also NASCAR, and you name it. If it hasn't been on the tarmac here of Watkins Glen, it's probably not worth mentioning in the road racing series. But this circuit made up of 11 corners. We're running the full layout, the full boot course layout. We can see the run from the start-finish line down towards turn 1, also known as 90 right, a right-angled right-hander, as our drivers make their way through turn number 1 and set themselves up for the long run all the way up towards the bus stop chicane. And that requires them to go through turns 2, 3 and 4, the S's, where we'll see our drivers flat out through the very heavily cambered corners, and as they exit turn 4, it's the sprint to the bus stop chicane, and as they make their way on through, not officially counted as a corner of the bus stop chicane, interestingly, as they emerge from there, having to manage the weight of the car as they transfer it between the right-left, left-right combinations. They'll then head into the outer loop, the right-hander, I should say, of turn number 5, where the corner is completely off camber, and our drivers will need to try and balance the momentum of the car and avoid picking up wayward understeer if they want to carry as much speed as possible in the run all the way down towards chute corner at turn number 6. Make their way through turn number 6, the left-hander, much like turn number 5, where it's off camber and completely downhill, and they'll find themselves trying up towards toe corner at turn number 7, known as toe corner because, as you can see from the map here, it does look like a boot, and as our drivers make their way through toe corner, very heavily cambered corner, they'll brake as late as possible. Instead, we'll see some of the latest braking possible. They'll exit out and charge their way down the back straight to turn number 8 into hill corner. Emerge from the right-hander at turn number 8, they head uphill to return to the classical layout in turn number 9 as they go through the left-hander there, a very tricky corner, turn number 9, because as we'll see when we ride on board with our drivers, it's a corner that goes over a major bump in the road as they transition road surfaces, and effectively that bump will destabilise the car. Make the way out of 9, they head up into turns 10 and 11, the left into right sweep, where it's almost flat out for turn number 10. Now dab of the brakes before heading to turn number 11. We'll see our drivers get as close as possible to the exit wall of 11 to carry as much speed to the start-finish line and go on to the next lap. Interested? Well, we're going to see more of the laps in qualifying because this circuit can only be described in words to a limited extent and also by images as provided by simracingwiki.com. Thank you to them as always, but when we ride on board with our drivers and give you a three-dimensional view, you'll get to see why this circuit is affectionately known as the Glen and why so many drivers and spectators year in, year out come to Watkins Glen International all over the world to see motorsport take place. But, of course, for motorsport to take place, there have to be rules, and in our rule book, here are the rules for tonight. In terms of setup, car fuel loads have been restricted to 43 litres for this round, and with that fuel restriction, that means there will be a mandatory pit stop over the 60 minutes of racing. Our drivers must take on fuel in the pit stop. They do not have to change tyres if they do not want to, and we typically don't see our drivers take tyres over the course of that pit stop. A driver shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 9 or more instant points, and if they're naughty enough and pick up 16 instant points, they'll be disqualified from the race. The following bonus points are available, of course. 1 point for pole position, that is overall pole position, not class pole position. 1 point for fastest lap over the course of the race. 1 point for the Sublime Finesse Award, which is the fewest instance over the round. 1 point for lead in a lap at any point in the race, that's overall lead, not class lead. And 1 point for the Naked Aggression Award, which is the most overtakes made by a single driver over the course of the round. But that's enough rules, regulations, and everything in between. I know what you're all here for. You're here for the race in action. As we look back to our cameras here, we see our drivers getting ready to go. And in particular, we can see Micah Hendricks in the background here, heading on down out of turn number 6 and in towards 7. And the Blue Flag Motorsports driver here looking quite strong in this final practice session with only 4 minutes on the clock before we transition over into qualifying. But to give you a further update in regards to the championships, we've told you the update with regards to Francois Schink versus Robert Abrams, where Schink has taken the championship lead after a long grip that Robert Abrams has had on the championship lead. It has finally swayed the way of Francois Schink with only 2 rounds to go and 10 points separates the two of them. Meanwhile, in the Delta class, as we look here to our Delta Championship leader of Connor Achitella, the number 55 driver, making his way all the way down through turn number 6 right now as he heads on through the privateer. He is currently leading the championship, and barring absolutely exceptional circumstances, he is very likely to wrap up the championship here today because his advantage currently stands at 129 points over Daniel Sedano, and Sedano's currently in the pit lane getting ready to go on out. But if Achitella just brings the car home, he'll be absolutely fine, and therefore he will take the crown with a round to spare in the inaugural Delta Championship that has been brought into this series as of Season 5. And the Deltas, of course, being represented on our time in town, indeed on the highlight HUD in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, by a purple sash against their name, and that means they are effectively in our AM or Prime class, whereas the blue sash drivers, such as Gurkan Demir, for example, who you can see here making his way across the timeline onto another lap, they have that blue sash because that represents they are part of the Alpha class, or our pros, if you will, the faster paced drivers. But we have seen our Deltas mix things up with our Alphas time and time again over the course of this series, and with the points only going for overall position, there are no class points up. There are no class points up for grabs today. It is purely overall points. As always, our Alphas and Deltas are encouraged to battle one another as much as possible, and particularly for our Deltas, it gives them a little bit more incentive to fight hard. As we see Gurkan Demir making his way all the way towards the bus stop chicane. All the drivers absolutely set to go. 2.5 minutes on the clock. And whilst we can't see any of you in the chat at the moment, not saying anything, we do, of course, encourage you to get involved, interact with us. We do have access to the chats of both the YouTube and Twitch streams. So as a result, if you do pop any messages, feel free to say hi. Don't be shy. We don't bite here. And I hope you're all doing well and having a great weekend so far. It is, of course, Saturday, which means you get to put your feet up in most cases and get ready for the evening, or indeed the morning if you're based in certain countries in the world. But I hope you're all doing it well all the same and are set for some fantastic racing action, because I can tell you right now, if Watkins Glen produces anything, it produces classical racing action. And one man to watch out for tonight, we reckon, Talk Steer Racing's Matt Shepka. Last time out at Mid-Ohio, he qualified extremely well and ended up on pole through rather adverse circumstances, where the pole sitter of Wojciech Surodoric was not able to make it to the grid due to technical issues with the car, had to start from the pit lane a lap down, and Shepka took the pole position. He was inherited it through what was a P2 qualified position. He was on pole in the end, and we are expecting the Honda Civic Type R driver to go very strongly here today. He's not in the ideal car for the circuit. The Honda Civic's not optimised for speed, and with this circuit being a very power orientated and top top speed orientated circuit. We indeed expect the Hyundai Elantra, as piloted by, for example, Dom Savio here, the privateer, to be on top of the standings, but we'll have to wait and see how our drivers make their machinery work. Of course, this series open setup, our drivers could tweak the setups of the car as they so desire, but the key thing is here we're running the standard iRacing at balanced performance, and the Elantra has proven to be the straight line beast and indeed the acceleration beast. How we should not count out the likes of the Audi RS3, and indeed we have Fernando Takahashi and also newcomer Kirby Kavillion driving the Audi RS3, and we've also got the Hyundai Veloster out there, for example Daniel E. Smith, who's currently in the pit lane. But as time ticks down here with only 30 seconds to go on this final warm-up stroke practice session, we are just going to briefly cut away to work our magic in the background to skip forward to the qualifying session and make sure that the qualifying times are not revealed to you in advance, so we'll be back within the next minute, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere, qualifying is coming up very shortly. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, qualifying is now underway and all of our drivers are making their way out of the pit lane, and we've cleared the timing charts on the left hand side, so that way we don't reveal what lap times are set. And indeed, I don't know what lap times have been set. This is completely raw to me as your host and commentator, and Matt Shepard is the first driver out there onto the circuit, immediately going on the charge, and what I think absolutely chomping at the bit to deliver today, and you can completely understand. All fired up after his brilliant performance at Mid-Ohio, but indeed many a driver looking to do well, as we do see a little bit further back, for example, Connor Achatella here making his way all the way up towards what is the bus stop chicane as he comes on through, and as he rolls his way up towards the bus stop chicane, we can see also behind him a fellow Hyundai Veloster driver of Daniel Smith, and as he makes his way in to the bus stop chicane in the Project Melody machine, coming on through for Torque Steer Racing in official capacity, we can see both of the Veloster drivers getting themselves set up. So what does it take to deliver a good qualifying lap at Watkins Glen International, I hear you ask? Well, you've got to be brave and you've got to be bold. Now, when we talk about bravery, you've got to be ready to go as late as possible into the cambered corners in terms of your braking point, and believe in the ability of the car to be able to just deliver the power through the corner. You want to get the throttle down as soon as possible, dig into the camber of the corner and carry the speed on through. But at the same time, you've got to be bold, and on the off-camber corners, such as turns 5 and 6, you've got to be confident in your ability to take that speed through the corner despite it being off camber and carry the speed all the way to the end of the corner, and that sets you up nicely for the next one. In turn, that means you have greater straight line speed because you became 1 to 2 mile an hour more from corner to corner on the extended straights here, adds all together to make a brilliant lap. And speaking of a brilliant lap, we hope that as we get ready to ride on board here with Shepka, as he heads around through the final corner, it's going to be a brilliant lap to start off our qualifying session because no pressure on him. It's going to be our first flying lap. Making his way out to the corner, we clear the screen, of course bring up the track map and also the dashboard in the bottom right hand corner, so you can see his speed and gear, heading down towards turn number 1, looking to his left here and braking at the 200-yard board as he comes down the gearbox to third gear, making his way on through and exiting out at 76 miles an hour, and now charging all the way up the hill as we see Fernando Takahashi backing off. Completely flat out here through turn 2 as he makes his way through the S's up to 5th gear, continues to build his way up through the gearbox, going uphill initially, and now the level starts to level out as he makes his way through turns 3 and 4, and as he heads on to the straightaway here, all the way up towards the bus stop chicane he goes, heading up into 6th gear, top gear of the Honda Civic, and as he gets ready to brake into the bus stop chicane, looks to his left for his brake marker, and he'll brake at the 200-yard board, trail braking in down to 4th, down to 3rd, potentially no, he stays in 4th gear case, all the speed on through, now into turn number 5, and this is where the circuit goes into that off-camber state where you can see the corner wanting to slide out on the left-hand side, and we can see the car gradually, naturally understeering wide as Shepard just keeps it in track limits and heads down to turn number 6. Making his way into shoot corner here, bringing the car nice and close to the apex and not letting it drift out, and as he makes his way out, building up the speed again from 3rd into 4th gear shortly, and as he heads down towards the braking zone here for turn number 7 into toe corner, braking as late as he dares at approximately 115 yards from corner apex, and you can see here getting on the throttle immediately as soon as he touches that apex in 2nd gear. Up through the gearbox he goes once again, and now charges his way all the way down the back straight here to hill corner at turn number 8. Now getting ready to break into a slightly downhill braking zone. You can see the road starting to dip, braking at approximately 140 yards from the corner, and as he makes his way through the right-hander, 73 miles an hour on apex speed, using the runoff area there, they're permitted to do so, and heading up into turn number 9, the trickiest corner of them all, down to second gear, and the slowest corner as well, with an apex speed there of 62 miles an hour, as he makes his way out of the corner and now into turn number 10. Does he lift? A brief lift, but no dab of the brakes there, and now heading through turn number 10 and in towards 11. A bit more braking involved here as he breaks his way into the final corner of the circuit in fourth gear and rolls on out, and you can see here letting the car drift on out naturally and heading to the line. And what's it going to be for our first qualifying lap from our driver as he comes to the line? It is going to be a 59.044, a nice solid lap there from Shepka to kick us off, but already we do see some times coming in a little bit faster, including David Bauer there, who sets what is a 59.03. Schink meanwhile and McKinsey both going into the 48 already, and Francois Schink, my good lord, the man here is absolutely committed, and it's the first flying lap. I don't think you got the memo you meant to build up to your fastest lap, because that, a 58.047, is 4 tenths faster than anybody so far. But to be fair, I think we've got plenty more times to come. Schink right now is going immediately out of the blocks here. But you can understand, as championship lead now, he does not want to leave anything up to chance. He wants that 1 point for pole position. Every bonus point he can get will be absolutely invaluable at this critical juncture in the championship. But meanwhile, speaking of good performances, Daniel Sedino, they're taking P5 overall so far, 1 second off of Schink's time on a 59.0. But the key thing is here, Sedino looking good in terms of pace. We didn't quite see too much pace in the final warm-up or practice session, but I do imagine he was perhaps keeping it under the hood and keeping it under wraps to reveal it all when he went into this qualifying session. But we do have a number of drivers still to set lap times, and we also have some newcomers to the series today. I think just trying things out before season 6, later in the year or next year in 2023. And those newcomers are Kirby Cavilion, who we briefly see phase in and out of existence there in the run through the bus stop chicane and in towards turn number 5, running in the full tilt Audi RS3 as a privateer. And we also have the newcomer of Sam Boutwell, who is currently in the pit lane and not out in the circuit. I think Cavilion there having some connectivity issues, and hopefully those do not spell a certain potential retirement from the race, as they would be the equivalent if he was to disconnect to an engine failure in real-world motorsport. Fingers crossed that does not happen, but it can happen, and well, we hope he's able to have his internet connection stabilise on down. But speaking of stabilising right now, Achatella will be thinking about how can he potentially bring things down to earth here for Sedino and Dom Savio, who've looked very fast so far, as we do see the Delta Championship leader heading down towards turn number 8. And as he makes his way into the braking zone here, how's the lap looking so far, I hear you ask? It's looking relatively good, not purple anywhere, but looking green across the board. I think his first lap was more of a warm-up lap, or a secondary warm-up lap, and now he's starting to really deliver as he heads on through and up towards turn number 10. And we do know the Veloster is a bit of an all-rounder of a machine compared to its peers, in terms it does not have the best straight line speed, it doesn't have the best cornering, the best brakes, but it has a little bit of everything, so it's a jack of all trades bar none. And as he makes his way up through the final corner, what's it going to be for the number 55 driver as he comes to the timing line here? It's looking a smooth lap, but what does that smoothness translate into? We crosses the timing line and we briefly lose him, and he reappears, and it's a 59.925, but not enough to jump him all the way up the order. Still P15 overall, and in fact demoted to P16 with Eric Stats moving up to P13. Achatella really not having a strong qualifying session. Meanwhile, as we look from him to David Bauer, who goes a little bit wide there, and in fact jumps over the escape grass of what is the bus stop chicane, the second part of it. Many of the drivers are expected to potentially carry a bit too much speed into the bus stop chicane and may have to utilise the runoff area or the grass at some point if they go a little bit too aggressively on him. But we can see here David Bauer, the breakfast dinner driver, making his way on through and running in the draft for one of the blue flag motorsport machines of Daniel Sedino, I do believe that is. And that's one big question you may ask is, can drivers really capitalise on the slipstream or the draft here at Watkins Glen? And the short answer is yes, they most certainly can. For the simple reason, there are lots of straightaways here and also a lot of corners whereby if you brake early by about 25 to 30 metres in the draft of another car, you don't really lose anything in terms of overall pace. If anything, it actually helps you get the car rotate through the corner by braking a little bit early. You can come to that apex, it offsets the dirty air of the car in front. So trying to find somebody who can give you the tow over the course of your qualifying lap will really aid you, and that could really translate into almost half a second if it's absolutely nailed on. But of course, when you're trying to stay close to somebody, you've got to start the lap a good amount of distance from the rear of them, because otherwise if you do not, then you end up becoming very close to the back of the driver in front, and if they're on a fast lap, then you can't exactly just force your way on through, because then you incur the wrath of the stewards. But as we hear that Logan McKenzie just crossing the line to deliver a 57.66, we see David Bell does not improve. Meanwhile, Daniel Sedino does improve to what is a P7. They're on a 58.349, but it's Shepka currently who's sitting on pole. Well, I think after taking pole in the end at Mid-Ohio last week, this week he wants to absolutely show everyone he can take pole position without any issues or without inheriting it as he makes his way up towards the bus stop chicane. He's looking good so far, Shepka, but can he bring this on home given the fact we've still got half of the qualifying session to go, and Logan McKenzie and Francois Schink are not too far behind. In fact, Francois Schink only at what is 1/10, well, in fact not even a 10th, my apologies, a 100th of a McKenzie right now. That shows you how close it is. But I think the big question is, where is Robert Abrams in all of this? Well, Robert Abrams currently is P22. He's yet to put a time in, interestingly, and hopefully this is not a sign of something to come. Perhaps there's an issue with the car down in the pit lane and they're not able to get it fixed at the moment, because of Robert Abrams, he needs to be out there and he needs to be winning qualifying laps. Now, as they make the way on around with limited time to go, we can see Aaron Lahr here, the number 38 driver, currently down in P16. We do see a number of our Alpha drivers today struggling a little bit in this qualifying session and not quite on the pace they perhaps expected to bring here today to Watkins Glen, and this could really mix things up. And speaking of mixing things up, we see that Jesse Butters right now, currently the Alpha pole, not the Alpha, the Delta pole sitter provisionally in P6 on a 57.99, and as he makes his way down through turn number 6 and heads up towards turn 7 at toe corner, you can see just in front of him there Achatella, who'll be probably thinking right now, okay, I've still got work to do. And Mike Hendricks goes up to pole position overall and in the Alpha class there on a 57.160. Well, those times are continuing to tumble down, and Hendricks now putting an absolute stellar lap. Shepka improves and is now only 2.5 tenths of a Hendricks. Well, Shepka may not be looking at pole position right now. He's definitely looking at that front row, and everyone's trying to find the time to deliver as Francois Schink goes even faster to a 57.098. Could we see a potential 56 here on the cards today in qualifying? It's possible, but a driver's got to absolutely hook it up and potentially get some tow added into that lap as we see Schink go on, and we see Fernando Takahashi there going to the wall as they make the way through the S's, and I think Takahashi at this point trying to find some clear track to deliver the potency of the RS3. Now, the thing about the RS3 is it is a very strong car in terms of straight line acceleration. It gets up to quite a wonderful top speed, but at the same time, this car is not the strongest through the corners. We have seen over the course of the season it does seem to struggle with direction change more than most, particularly through chicanes. We've got the bus stop chicane, which will hurt the Audi to an extent, but the rest of the lap here should be quite strong for the car. The only other thing it's got to worry about is engine temperature. The car can overheat quite aggressively if it's a warm down, it's running in the draft of another car, and perhaps that's where Takahashi's having some difficulty at the moment. Those temperatures just not working out for the RS3 driver as he makes his way downhill through turn and number 6. In fact, a bit of an oversteer there. In fact, understeer translating then eventually into oversteer on corner exit creeping in, and well, for the Audi RS3 driver, he's got a long way to go with Cavillion right now, his other Audi RS3 peer, about 6 tenths of a second faster in P18. But as they make the way on out, we can see it coming on past there. That's why the breakfast for dinner drivers, and I believe, unless I'm very much mistaken, that is David Bauer coming on through as they make the way up towards what is turn number 8. And as they head in towards the corner here, David Bauer looking comfortable and starting to build some momentum. We do know the breakfast for dinner can either take 1 or 2 approaches to qualifying. They either nail it from the start or they build it up towards the very end, as we see Hendricks sits the first 56 of the session, of 56.970. Hendricks delivering, and Francois Schink P2 now. P3, that's your top 3 in the time down the left hand side of your screen, but it'll be interesting to see whether McKenzie and Vagiles can get into that fight. And also John Lauzon, they'll be wanting to try and improve and get as close as possible to their teammate of Schink for the simple reason they'll want to help him out. As we see David Bauer coming to the timing line here with 3 minutes to go. What's it going to be this time? Well, he improves to 58.051. And that puts him up a place, but then Daniel Sedino goes and takes provisional pole position in the Delta class there, P7 overall with a 57.989, hooked that lap up very nicely, also benefited from the distant tow of Fernando Takahashi there as he made his way across the line, and Rhodes has just jumped up to P7. That's Justin Rhodes with more time to coming on in. The track is continuing to improve and find more pace, and our drivers are unlocking it, so when we could expect those pole laps coming right at the deadlock, when the checkered flag is waving, that's when we could expect them to materialise as as we see that Eric Statzer has jumped up to P15 overall. A nice qualifying lap there from Statzer after a difficult start to his qualifying session, and the Honda Civic driver now making his way through turn number 1. He's got 2 more laps on the cards here as he heads on up through the S's, and as he rolls his way on through, we do have limited time remaining, but this is the man who's currently on fire and on the top step of that tower on the left hand side, provisionally on pole with Micah Hendricks, but as he heads up towards what is turn number 9 into left-hander here, the little velocity that could is the car we're going to ride on board with very shortly for a fast lap of the Watkins Glen Circuit as he makes his way out towards turn 10 and then subsequently 11. But the thing about Hendricks, we do know a very fast driver over both a single lap and also in race pace, and when he's on point he's absolutely unstoppable. And now we ride on board here with the Velocity driver as he heads on around, and the dashboard's in the bottom right hand corner of your screen to be able to follow on in terms of the gears and speed. 10 across that timeline and down towards turn number 1, not improved on that lap and headed into the braking zone here, and as he goes all the way down through the gearbox there, a little bit of drifting under braking, you can see having to fight the steering wheel as the car became unsettled under braking. That's how much rear brake bias is running, and as he makes his way out through the S's now, maximising the RPM before upshifting, given he's going uphill, so he wants as much torque as possible, and heading all the way up through turn 3 in towards 4, and as he completes the S's, see Schinker's gone back up to pole there by 1.5 tenths on a 56.795. So for Hendricks, can he take that pole position back on this lap? It's the last one as he breaks his way into the bus stop chicane, bringing the car through so close to that right-hand wall, just almost scraping it. And as he comes on through the chicane now down into turn number 5 here, fighting with the steering wheel every second of the way and riding the apex curve. An interesting line there, using the curve to really settle the car down and turn it through the corner. And as he comes down to shoot corner at turn number 6, will we see him ride onto the apex here? We do indeed, and really using the curve in there to help rotate the car as he exits on out and now heads up towards turn number 7 in towards toe corner. Onto the brakes he goes from 5th gear all the way down the gearbox to what will be 3rd gear. When he drops to 2nd, he does mid-apex, and as he accelerates out the corner back up to 3rd and building all that power from Hendricks so far. Personal best sector 2. What about in subsector 3 as he comes across the timeline for that shortly? We'll see an update, not an improvement in subsector 3. Breaking his way into turn number 8 here at Hill Corner, coming on around, building up the speed once again from 2nd gear to 3rd gear. Very snappy gearbox in the lower gears as well for the Veloster, and as he makes his way into turn number 9, tricky corner here. So he can try to carry the speed, but in return the car becomes a bit unsettled as he makes his way over the bump and just misses the wall there by a hair's width. But I think that may have just compromised the lap as he heads through turn number 10. I don't think it's going to be the golden lap here, but we'll carry it all the way through to the finish. And in fact, in the end, Hendricks coming onto the inside. That's his lap done and dusted. He will not be improving. P2 the best he can do. Meanwhile, Francois Schinck continues to make his way around, but can anybody dethrone Francois Schinck from pole position here today? The checker flag continues to wave as our drivers coming through. Here comes Shepka. Can Shepka improve? He's been improving in 2 of 5 subsectors. As he comes to the line, does he improve in the 5th subsector? He makes his way to the timing line, and it's going to be an improvement, but it's not an improvement in position. P3 will be Shepka's final position at the highest. Meanwhile, we've also got coming on through, what is there, David Bauer a little bit further back, and as he makes his way out the final corner, what can the Hyundai Elantra driver do as he comes to the line? He's P12 currently, and he crosses the line. He jumps all the way up to P4. 8 places gained. Beautiful there from Bauer. And meanwhile, as Verjulas comes across the line, Jerome Verjulas makes his way to that timing line. Will he be able to improve? I don't think so. No, he does not improve. We've still got more coming, including James Carr, as Logan McKinsey has come across the line as well. In fact, he's decided to park it up. He's not happy with that lap, and it's not going to be an improvement. What about James Carr then, as he comes across the timeline? He jumps up to P4. He dethrones his teammate Bauer from where's the 2nd row of the grid, and Eric Statzer, one of our last drivers to come on through for the Delta class here as he comes to the line, currently P15. He improves his time, but he doesn't improve his position, and that is everybody accounted for. And in the end, it is going to be Francois Schinck who takes pole position with Micah Hendricks alongside him on the front row, and it is Connor Achatella who takes pole position in the Delta class, P9 overall, with Justin Rhodes alongside on the 5th row of the grid to commence the racing today. A brilliant qualifying session here at Watkins Glen, and now we wait for the transition over to the formation of the grid for our one and only race today. And as we do await that transition, absolutely splendid conditions here at Watkins Glen. Not too much cloud in sight, which means the circuit's going to be quite exposed to the sunlight, and track temperature will come up quite aggressively over the course of the racing, with all of our drivers out on the circuit laying down the rubber. But one of the key things there, it's worth noting, Robert Abrams not setting a qualifying time in the end and expected to start from towards the back of the grid, when it could not be going from good to bad to worse at a critical point for the championship challenger in the overall and also the Alpha Championship. But we'll have to wait and see where Abrams can come all the way from the back of the grid and fight his way on through. He's going to have a good number of deltas to pass his way on through before he bumps into the first of the Alpha drivers. But let's take you through that grid then for the purposes of today's Alpha feature race. So this is how they line up. Francois Schinck takes pole position in the end for Beaver Buzz Energy by a margin of 1.5 tenths over Micah Hendricks in P2 for Blue Flag Motorsports. Matt Shepka and James Carr line up together on row at number 2, ahead of row number 3's David Bow for Breakfast for Dinner and Yellow Flag Motorsports' Logan McKenzie. Then behind them on row number 4, it's John Lawson from Beaver Buzz Energy, joined by Jerome Bajulas, his teammate there. They lock out the fourth row with Connor Achitella in P9, the pole sitter in the Delta class, the privateer alongside Justin Rhodes from Breakfast for Dinner, who's in P10. Daniel Sedino and Jesse Butters make up row at number 6, P11, P12 respectively, the two Delta drivers. Behind them we have Gurkan Demir and Dom Savio on row number 7, followed by Eric Statzer and Kirby Cavilion on his debut. Aaron Lahr and Daniel Smith on the 9th row, with Fernando Takahashi and Spencer Cockayne on the 10th row, P19, P20. Robert Abrams starts P21, Joe Camilleri P22, and then Sam Boutwell will be the last of our drivers to start on the grid for today. 23 drivers in attendance, and the debutant starting P23 as we now wait for the lights within the next minute or so. All our drivers getting set here. An absolutely splendid day at Watkins Glen International, and a bit more cloud has started to come on over the circuit, so it does look a little bit dim at a distance. But I can tell you that whilst the conditions may be dimming slightly, our drivers' ability to race hard and fast will not be. And as they get ready to go, we look down to the grid and now await the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for round at number 12. And you see Francois Schinck gets a great start, and Mike Hendricks bogs down initially and loses out immediately off the start. But look at Shepka, he's all over the back of Schinck, but Schinck covers him off well, as meanwhile James Carr goes all the way around the outside into 90 right at turn 1. And as they emerge from the corner, all of our drivers make it out safe and sound as they now come charging on up the hill. But it looks as though James Carr absolutely flying off the line there, and behind Logan McKenzie, not really gaining, not really losing. But you can see Jerome Bajulas and John Lawson have swapped places as they make the way through the S's, and now down on towards the bus stop chicane they go. It's now time for drivers to go side by side here in battle for position early on, and David Bow trying to make his way past McKenzie and go up against Hendricks here as they head on to the brakes. But as they roll the way on in, Achitella getting a good start still in P9. Daniel Sedino, who's the focus of our cameraman's attention, with Gurkan Demir. Contact between the two of them, Gurkan Demir coming across the circuit and surviving. But meanwhile we're hearing that John Lawson has gone straight on into the wall. It's gone so very wrong to the Beaver Buzz driver from Canada as he brings himself back onto the circuit. And I think it was contact with Achitella, in fact, as they made the way through the bus stop chicane. But Daniel Sedino drifting his way through turn number 6 and into the wall there. The car coming loose, and Achitella losing places and then regaining them as quickly as he's lost them. My goodness, well, this lap number 1 has already been dramatic, and we're only just halfway through it, and still plenty of this lap to go. Indeed, more laps to come as well, as we see Daniel Smith by comparison here gaining 2 places at the start, now chasing after Daniel Sedino, the driver who gained and then lost out dramatically. But as they make the way down the back straight, now Daniel Smith will have an eye on his rival here as they make the way up towards turn number 8. But as they're heading towards the braking zone, we can see Fernando Takahashi battling side by side with Spencer Cockayne. Onto the brakes they go. The Audi RS3 driver Takahashi looking up the inside. Can he get the move done, or will Cockayne hold it all the way around the outside to set up the inside defence into turn number 9? Well, Takahashi looks the faster of the two, but Cockayne goes all in on the brakes. They make the way through turn number 9, and well, the Blue Flag Motorsport driver holds on. That's Fernando Takahashi almost to the wall there. But after one lap, as they come to the timeline, you see them making their way out to the final corner. It's Francois Schinck who leads to Beaver Buzz Energy ahead of James Carr in P2, Matt Shepka in P3, followed by Mike Hendricks P4, David Bow in P5, then it's Logan McKenzie in P6, Jerome Bajulas in P7 as they head down towards turn number 1, Justin Rhodes P8, Gurkan Demir P9, getting 4 places off the start, one of our biggest gainers, and then Connor Achitella completes the top 10, your Delta leader at this time, with Dom Savio best of the rest behind him, P2 in the Delta class as they head through turn number 1 once more. Behind them we can see that Daniel Smith has found his way past Daniel Sedino as they made the way out of 1 and through the S as they go, but now it's the war of the Hyundais, I should say, and indeed the war of top speed, as we know that Elantra in the hands of Sedino is much faster on the straights compared to Little Veloster. But as they head on up towards the bus stop chicane, will we see a potential comeback here from Daniel Sedino, or will he wait his turn and wait for later in the race? I think he's doing the latter rather than the former, and they make the way in line astern at once more through the chicane. But as they come on through, you can imagine at any moment if Daniel Smith makes a mistake, Sedino will bounce, and you can see that almost there with Smith losing a little bit of momentum between the two sections of the chicane. And going a bit deep, in fact, through turn number 5, and now Sedino's going to be on the outside here as they head into the braking zone for shoot corner. It's Smith on the inside, Sedino on the outside, and Will Smith's not going to make this easy, and Daniel Sedino locking up the brakes. Again, the car just not wanting to do what its master desires as they make the way down through turn number 6, and Sedino's got to try and find a way to avoid that from continually happening, because he's only going to go backwards the more and more it continues. Meanwhile, speaking of a driver who's going forwards, not backwards, James Carr now back up to P2. He's found his way past Hendricks once again off camera and makes his way into the second place position behind Sheik for breakfast for dinner. Here is Carr as he makes his way up towards turn number 9, and you can see behind David Bauer here in P5 also not making any ground at the start, not gaining any places, but definitely cemented himself well within this top 5 and going battling versus his peers in front. Shepka in P4 lost the place at the start, as is Micah Hendricks, but as they head through turn number 10, I think this is only the start of the storm that's coming, for as they make their way through turn number 11, this top 6 right now so close together, closely compacted. Shink is 1 second up the road from the 5 drivers behind him, but you can imagine he makes a single mistake and it's all going to fall back on top of him like a stack of dominoes as Hendricks sets the fastest lap of the race at 58.331. Meanwhile behind, Justin Rhodes here putting pressure on Jerome Pachulas up the inside for breakfast for dinner, and the Beaver Buzz Energy Drive's going to hang it all the way around the outside, and it does look as though the inside line's optimum at 90 right at turn 1, but it's not. The outside line is the better line for the simple reason you've got more space to play with, and also the corner is slightly cambered, which means when you're on that higher line you're able to take a little bit more speed on corner exit, and Justin Rhodes now will feel the pinch of that. He's not been able to use as much power on corner exit, and in return he has Gurkan Demir here looking to go on the offensive as we jump on board with the Torque Racing driver from Turkey. He's all over the back of Rhodes as they make the way under braking, but backs off there so as not to make contact. But as they head through the bus stop chicane, you can see the approaches between the drivers. Rhodes very aggressive over the curves, Demir by comparison a little bit more gentle with the car, trying to protect the suspension, also avoid carrying too much speed and therefore potentially coming into the back of Rhodes as they make their way out of 5 and down to a shoot corner at 6. But as they roll the way down into the braking zone, indeed into the Alpha Camber corner, you can see fighting the steering wheel, Demir, the car just wanting to step out, and that's what we saw for Daniel Sedino earlier, where the car stepped out on lap number 1, and on lap number 2 was too aggressive on the brakes and causing a lock up on the front right brake. And as they make their way through turn number 7, Bruto corner, Demir getting closer but not close enough and looking to try and make a move, but I think an opportunity is coming with Rhodes getting it slightly wrong and touching the grass there, coming out to turn number 7, and as they head up towards 8 here, can Demir get close enough to look for the move? No, he has to wait and is forced to watch on as they make their way through turn number 8 and up towards 9. But as they head on through, we can see here Logan McKenzie battling with David Bauer on the inside, McKenzie around the outside, the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver here giving space to his rival, which is fair and part of the code rulebook. But as they make their way in towards turn number 10, McKenzie gets the job done. He gains a place for Yellow Flag Motorsports. Meanwhile, the big question is, where is Robert Abrams in all of this? Well, Robert Abrams, here he is at the back of the field. He started, he's made his way through the order, and in fact I do believe he had to start from the back of the field. He wasn't allowed to put in the qualifying time due to a car swap, because you'll notice he's back in his classic Hyundai Elantra, having gone to the Veloster mid-season. He's now back in the Elantra, going back with Old Faithful and looking to deliver as he makes his way down towards turn number 1. His next target is Dom Savio, picking off the Delta drivers here in the hunt for P11 as he makes his way out of the corner, and Abrams here in the number 14 machine. Well, having to start from the back, he's made life ever more difficult for himself, but looking to try and come all the way through the order. He's making good progress so far, 9 places gained, still more to come, and I think there's now a place gain on the cards here as he makes his way out of the S's, and you can see just in front Gurkan Demir trying to be holding off Connor Achatella, but meanwhile Abrams here looking on the inside, into the bus stop chicane they go. Dom Savio on the outside there, does not fight it too hard. And I think recognising that Abrams is on a bit more pace. We've got a car off there, and that is Justin Rhodes getting it wrong. A lock up there into the bus stop chicane. He rejoins ahead of Dom Savio, but drops down to P11, and that's another driver ticked off the list for Robert Abrams as they make the way out to turn 5 and down towards 6. But as they head on through, we look back to James Carr now battling with Shepka here for P3, and James Carr is going backwards, not forwards, and Shepka is now starting to make his way back up the order after being denied a place on the front row of the grid by Mika Hendricks. Now he's going to try and hunt it down in the race itself as he makes his way out of turn number 7, and the Honda driver at this point will look in very fast indeed. Whilst many a driver has gone for the Hyundai Elantra this season, Shepka has always been in the Honda Civic Type R, and he's done everything with it. He's had rounds where the car has not wanted to play ball, it's not had the pace, but now in this latter portion of the season he's really found the niche point for the car, and he is delivering it even in the circuits where the car does not have the pace. He's finding the pace, and that shows man and machine in harmony as he hunts down Hendricks, but he's got to keep car at bay. But as he makes his way on through turn number 10, we look back to Jesse Bodas here as they make their way out to turn 9, chasing after Daniel Smith, and he's got pressure on his Bodas because behind him is Eric Statzer, who right now would love that opportunity to try and take the place off of Bodas as they make their way through the left into right. But as they come out of 10 and down towards turn number 11, we can see all three drivers stacked up together here, and Smith having a bit of difficulty at this point of the race in delivering the pace, and I think Jesse Bodas will be looking for the move soon if he's not already thought about it, because they make their way across that timeline. Well, we're only just shy of 10 minutes into the hour, but you can imagine for Jesse Bodas, every second he loses behind Daniel Smith will be critical. But I think Smith as well now starting to get the car up to speed and get himself comfortable as they make their way into the S's once again as they come and charge it all through. Smith just looking composed, I think focusing what lies ahead and waiting to react to Jesse Bodas to the 100 machine should they look to make a move as they head through turn it number 4 and up towards the Bus-stop chicane they charge. Now will he look for the move here, or is he too far back? He's going to get the overspeed in the Elantra versus the Veloster, and as they make the way into the chicane, no way through this time around. They stay as they were, but we look from them to our race leader, who after getting a brilliant start is now falling back into the clutches of Mika Hendricks is Francois Schink as they make the way down through 5 and 6 and now up towards 7, and Schink goes a bit wide there as we ride on board the gearbox of the Beaver Buzz driver in the number 18 machine, and you can see Hendricks there able to exploit the stronger braking system of the Veloster versus the Elantra to get a little bit close under braking, but still they stay as they were. Now what Hendricks is trying to do here is he's trying to get into Schink's head, make Schink think that he's going to try and make a move early under braking, dive to the inside. Of course, we know Hendricks doesn't normally go for those styles of moves, but if he tries to get in the head of his rival, it could help him in the long run as they make the way out to turn number 8 and up towards 9 they go. But this is where things settle down a little bit. There's no real opportunity to overtake unless you're already alongside on the emergence of 8 as they head through 9 and now up towards 10 they both charge, and as they head in towards the left into right combination, the Beaver Buzz driver here having to wait his turn, no real way on through as they make the way out to 10 and in towards 11. But you can see that Hendricks here all over the back of his rival, and with that pit stop of course mean they do need to take on fuel. Hendricks does have an opportunity here to short shift and save some fuel on the straights and potentially jump ahead through the pit window instead. But as they make the way down towards turn number 1, the key point here is 10 minutes are clocked in the race, that right now Francois Schink does not feel comfortable up front and instead has a lot of pressure building from behind. Speaking from building from behind, we can see here Gurkhan Demir, once he did fall behind Robert Abrams. In fact, Robert Abrams has found his way on past Gurkhan Demir. I was going to say I thought Demir was trying to make his way back on past, but right now Robert Abrams has come on through and is now up to P8, and Robert Abrams right now is absolutely flying. And bar Hendricks, who set the fastest lap of the race quite recently at 57.2, Robert Abrams right now is continually lapping in the low 58s, and the only drivers who are really outpacing him, and we suspect he's losing some time through making moves, it's all the drivers in front who are lapping in the 57s, but I wouldn't be surprised if Abrams has also got some 57s up his sleeve as he drifts his way into the Bus-stop chicane. He's got to be careful, however, because drifting like that is only going to hurt those tyres more and more as he goes deeper into the race. But meanwhile, Eric Statzer making a move up past Jesse Bodas there, and that's a critical one for him to go into P3 in the Delta class, moving up to P14 overall, in fact P15 overall, as we see our times how they've been updated with Justin Rhodes reappearing on circuit after a bit of connectivity issues. But Eric Statzer getting ahead of Jesse Bodas now. Can he break away? That's the big question. But as they make the way on down the hill, we look from there to Francois Schink, who continues to be hounded by Mika Hendricks as they make the way up towards turn number 8. You can see Shepka and Carr just a little bit further back in the picture, approximately 1.5 seconds off. But Schink right now really has to make a decision. Does he fight this hard, or does he decide to let it go and play the strategy game, but potentially doing some fuel saving? Well, Hendricks is going to force his hand for him, looking up the inside here into turn number 9, and Hendricks comes on through. Now can he seal the deal? It's going to do the run into turns 10 and 11. You would imagine Hendricks on the inside will get this hooked up and done, and there it goes as Schink decides to back off slightly, looking for the cutback run, but there's no real place to do so. And as they come in towards turn number 11, we have a change for our lead as we come to the end of lap number 6. It's now Mike Hendricks who's into lead of the race. Meanwhile, Francois Schink drops down to P2, but it's all over the back of his rival. And as they head down towards turn number 1, well, I think Schink's thinking about making a return move and then decide, no, it's not worth it right now. I'll do it in the run out of the S's up towards the bus stop chicane. I think that's the more sensible place as they head on out to the corner. And we ride on board here with the Beaver Buzz Energy driver as they head through turn number 2 and up the hill they go. And look at the overspeed in the Elantra. But the problem is he's deployed it too soon because he's been right on the back of his rivals. They make the way through the S's and now onto the straight. But here he can try once again. He gets closer and closer, but in fact lifts off a little bit there and decides not to go for it. And I think Schink decided to use some fuel saving here and just put the pressure on Hendricks. But I think being that more passive rather than aggressive may hurt him given the pace that Hendricks has been showing. But we'll have to wait and see whether that is the case or whether Schink is able to use this to his advantage now that he's given up track position as they make the way down towards turn number 6. But as they come on through the left-hander behind, Matt Shepka's only 4 tenths off and is well within attacking distance. James Carr, by comparison, has fallen back a little bit as they make the way down towards turn number 8. And Logan McKenzie now has David Bauer on his 6. But look behind the pair of them. That is Robert Abrams from Yellow Flag Motorsports. He's come all the way from the back of the field and he is continuing to charge his way on up after the top 6. Well, the man is absolutely driven to succeed, and who could blame him as he makes his way out of toe corner and down towards hill at turn number 8. He's got ahead of Jerome Pajulas off camera and he's continuing to bring down the gap to that top 6. But can he do so soon? Can he provide some support to Logan McKenzie, his teammate, who's under a lot of pressure here as we look to Logan McKenzie, who has got David Bauer all on his rear as they make the way out to 9 and in towards 10. As they make the way into left-hander here, McKenzie at this point I think will be hoping he can get a bit of relief and have his teammate work things through as they head in towards turn number 11. But I think that right now Robert Abrams is too far away to potentially helping out as they make the way past the wall camera there, and that gives you an idea of how close they get to that wall as they exit out of turn number 11. But heading up towards turn number 1, onto another lap they go. McKenzie definitely under a lot of pressure here as they head onto this next lap, and a bit further back Dom Savio running in P12 chasing afterwards. Justin Rhodes in front, running at P12 overall, P2 in the Delta class. Connor Agitella is currently your leader in the Delta class up in P9, but Dom Savio is comfortably clear of Eric Statz, who is further behind as Brendan Spencer Cockayne has been into the pits and is now leaving the pits, albeit a lap down in P20 as they continue to race on. As our drivers press on here at Watkins Glen, we do look from the battle for P11 shortly. It's a bit further up the road, but we stay with this battle for the time being as Dom Savio here gets closer and closer to the back of Rhodes. Can he find a way on through? I don't think so as they head into the braking zone. No, he has to wait once again. But meanwhile, speaking of looking a bit further up the road, here is the Delta leader of Connor Agitella, and presuming he finishes where he currently is, he will claim the Delta Championship when we go into our season finale next week as he makes his way on down the hill as he rolls away through turn number 6, staying close to Pajulas and Robert Abrams. And Abrams not able to really break away from Pajulas at this point. His lap times are indicative more of the fact that he's closing up to McKenzie and David Bauer, who are fighting, but the top 4 are breaking away from the rest of the field by comparison, lapping in the 57s. So right now for Robert Abrams, he's really got to get a move on and get into that fight in front. And speaking of that fight in front, we can see it as they make the way into turn number 9. McKenzie going a little bit deep, in fact very deep there, and he has to lift off before touching the grass. Touch the grass and you do get an off track. And as he makes his way into turn number 9, the Yellow Flag Motorsports driver here definitely right now feeling that pressure building on his back as they make the way in towards turn number 10. But speaking of pressure, as Hendricks got into lead of the race only moments ago, now looking to try and break away, and he's doing so as they head out of turn at number 11. You could see Shepka in particular, how close he got to the wall coming out of turn number 11. Literally nothing is holding back. I think all the inhibitors have been switched off and he's doing everything right now to bring down the house with regards to Francois Schink. But as they make their way out of turn number 1, of course all this power he's using right now could come back to haunt him later on in the race if he needs to take on more fuel in the pits. Further back, Jerome Pajulas all over the back of Connor Agitella as Agitella's in fact jumped up to P8, got ahead of Jerome Pajulas at the end of that last lap. And as they make the way through the S's now, we can see that Agitella under huge pressure here from Jerome Pajulas. Agitella enjoying battling with the Alphas, there's no doubt about that, as they make their way through turn number 4 and head on down towards the bus stop chicane. But this is giving a ton of breathing room to Robert Abrams, who can now focus on the drivers in front of him as they head up towards the chicane once again. But Ashton holds firm here, and Vagilis does not have that opportunity to make the move as he almost loses it there, coming through the chicane, taking a bit too much curb, unsettling the car, but brings it back together, and that was very near the mark, no doubt about that. As meanwhile, as we see them make their way down through turn number 5, already through into turn number 6, is McKinsey here versus Bauer, and Bauer still right behind McKinsey and building that potential move as they make their way up towards toe corner. As they head into the right hander here, the cambered right hander, you can see McKinsey keeping his lines nice and firm, and Bauer following him right in the wheel tracks as they come out of turn number 7 and head down towards turn 8 on the back straight. And David Bauer at this point, I think, needs to start thinking about what's the alternative he can do. It's a bit too early to go for the pit stop, it must be said, in terms of trying to go for that undercut. Normally we'd expect the pit stop to be around the 25-minute mark if he's going to try and go for that undercut. We did see a very aggressive early undercut attempt from John Lauzon last time out at Mid-Ohio, but the only problem was he didn't have enough fuel quite to get to the end of the race. He missed out by a lap of fuel, but in otherwise what could have been an absolutely sensational strategic effort. But John Lauzon had the right intentions. I think many a driver wrote down notes with regards to that in terms of what was done by Lauzon and whether they could replicate it here today. But, well, nobody so far decided to come into the pits too early, or those that have come in, we have had to retire. Daniel Sedino, and also what is Sam Boutwell and also Joe Camilleri. They've all retired, with Boutwell and Camilleri not making it to the grid in the end. But for Daniel Sedino retiring after 2 laps, a difficult day. In fact, retiring after 7 laps, it should be said, having a difficult day of racing here. And well, that will mean that effectively Connor Agitella now, regardless of how the racing concludes here, will be taking the Delta Championship with a round to spare, because Sedino was his closest rival by 129 points, and well, the margin now will be too great come the end of this race, regardless of how they all finish. But as we see here, McKinsey having to try and hold off David Bauer as they make their way into the bus stop chicane, and well, Bauer looking around the outside, McKinsey going a little bit deep, coming through the first bar, but he brings it back together just about. But David Bauer continuing to find these little feints, these little signs of a move coming, and it's how McKinsey responds to them that David Bauer's trying to look for. Because what he's trying to do is he's trying to put that pressure on his opponent to get McKinsey to make a major error. But no mistakes so far from McKinsey. But of course, the more and more he has to worry about what's behind him, the less attention he will give to the road in front of him. There's only so far he can go before a mistake will creep in. But of course, David Bauer, in turn, making these little dummies, these little feints, these little probes, if he makes them at the wrong time, he too could make a mistake, and that's why it's risk versus reward as they make the way on down the back straight. But as they do, we can see behind Robert Abrams getting closer, also Connor Agitella creeping closer, and Jerome Bajulas, all 3 drivers here just inside the top 10, all moving that little bit more into that battle for P5. And as they come on out to turn number 8 and up towards 9, we're going to be seeing a 5-way fight for P5 in the near future. There's no doubt about that. But as they head out to 9 and up towards 10, we'll have to wait and see when it all kicks off. Meanwhile, a bit further back, Eric Statz here, running P15 at the moment, trying to find his way past Aaron Lahr as he continues to pursue the Talksteer Racing driver in the Elantra. And meanwhile, up front, you can see them on the time town, new fastest lap set of 57.022 from Micah Hendricks, compared to a 57.2 personal best for Franz Washing and a 57.1 personal best from Matt Shepka. Our race leader is definitely pushing hard right now in order to try and open up that lead advantage. But as they come across the timeline here, the focus of our attention is on that battle for P14, and Stats are looking for the move into turn 1, looking to go all in on the brakes here, but it's all for naught as they make their way through turn 1, and Aaron Lahr holds the position there on the wider line as they now head up the hill behind John Lauzon after that difficult start to the race, which saw him charge off towards the wall at the bus stop chicane. Now back in the fight, and in P16 currently, the Beaver Buzz driver here looking to regain the place he's lost in due course as they make the way through the S's and on towards the bus stop chicane. A third of the race complete in terms of time, 20 minutes down, still 40 to go plus the final lap, still plenty to play for here from all of our drivers. And right now the biggest discussion point in terms of battling is the battle for P5 between Logan McKinsey and David Bauer. They're the main contenders and belligerents, but we've also got the co-belligerents of Robert Abrams here, who, remembering, gaining 14 places since the start. He's come from the back of the field from P21. Also Connor Agitella and Jerome Bajulas all wanting to get into the mix here, as we do see David Bauer getting a better run through a turn at number 7. But Robert Abrams, who we ride on board with now, is watching this and thinking about getting closer and closer, because for him, he will want to try and help McKinsey out, work a bit of team effort in for Yellow Flag Motorsports. As they make the way into turn at number 8, you can see that Robert Abrams practically drifting the car into the corner off of the rear brakes. That's how much rear bias is being run by Abrams. where the rear of the car is just sliding into the corner, and he's using throttle overlane in order to calm the front end of the car down and get the car to settle as they make the way in towards turn number 10. But as they do here, the yellow flag motorsports driver just having to wait and watch. He can see there where Bauer is pushing so hard and using as much of the road width as possible. But every time he pushes that little bit harder, he'll take a little bit more out of the tyres as all three drivers head across the timeline. You can see Abrams here staying on the racing line. David Bauer following McKenzie offline there. McKenzie trying to break the toe temporarily as they head down towards turn number 1. McKenzie, I think at this point, is really starting to feel the pressure, but he knows that Abrams is getting close and he'll be able to use his teammate in order to try and work at the fence here for P5 and P6. That's where Abrams will want to get through and then potentially swap places with McKenzie to go hunting after the top 4. But it's easier said than done, of course, as they make their way through turns 3 and 4 and head up towards the chicane. But as they charge on through behind, Agitella watches on as they make the way in the high-speed chase. And we can see again, look at McKenzie defending to the inside. They're about thinking about it, and Abrams getting very close, but he has to back off this time around. But Agitella getting very close in return to Robert Abrams here, and I think now Abrams finds himself in a bit of a rock and a hard place situation, because if he doesn't push through the battle ahead, he'll find himself in the hard place of being attacked from behind by the Delta driver as they make the way down into turn number 6. So I think for Abrams now, he's being called. He's got to get this move on now. He cannot wait anymore as they make the way out of turn 6 and down towards 7. You can see Bajulas there taking a little bit of grass, much like Agitella, and that won't help in terms of his pace as they make the way through toe corner once again. Further back, Justin Rhodes here holding of Dom Savio, who's very close behind and going hunting after Gherkin Demir in the hunt for the final spot in the top 10. Gherkin Demir in P10, of course, P9 in the Alphas as they make the way up towards turn number 8 as they come charging on down the back straight here. It's all to play for Justin Rhodes, because of course the breakfast for dinner driver wants to get as many points as possible to support his team as they make the way into the season finale, given that run of form they've had to date. Meanwhile, John Lauzon now on the back of Eric Statzer, looking for the move for P15 here versus the Delta driver, and we do know that John Lauzon, a very smart overtaker, but he's not able to find his way past the brick wall that Eric Statzer's putting up so far as they make the way through turn 9 and up towards turn number 10. But as they come into the left into right combination of 10 and 11, I think John Lauzon will be looking for the run up towards the chicane next time around. And into the pits are both Connor Agitella and also Jerome Bajulas. And is that for pit stops, or is it for a drive-through penalty? Well, I would like to think that they're dreaming of doing what is an undercut strategy here as Agitella continues to make his way in, and Jerome Bajulas as well. I think it's pit stops for the pair of them. They are going for a major undercut. Could this work out for them? That's the big question. Meanwhile, in that battle for P5, well, here it comes. It's more the battle for P6. Robert Abrams looking for the move on David Bauer, and McKenzie at this point, they're going to try and squeeze David Bauer between the two of them as they make their way into the chicane. Look at McKenzie. This is brave stuff. Yellow Flag Motorsports are trying to swap the drivers through the chicane. It hasn't quite worked out, but what they have done is made it so David Bauer's got nowhere to go other than follow behind, and Robert Abrams has cleared David Bauer, but the problem is he hasn't cleared McKenzie, and now he's got to get the swap done, and it looks like McKenzie here not yielding at the moment. I suspect if they are going to do a position swap, now it will have to come in the run to turn number 9. That's the only real place they could do it safely, unless Bauer makes a major error and drops further back. You can see every time they come towards the corner, Robert Abrams looking for that move. He can't quite find it at the moment. Justin Rhodes has just lost place. He's dropped behind Dom Savio from what we hear, but as they emerge from the corner, Robert Abrams has now got a chance, or has he? No, he tucks in behind again. Maybe the run to turn number 8. And you can see there David Bauer also thinking about getting into the mix. But as they head on to the anchors here, David Bauer tries to squeeze his way on in versus Logan McKenzie. They exit on out. Robert Abrams goes out wide there to make sure he carries the speed. McKenzie goes as defensive as possible. And finally, Yellow Flag Motorsports make the switch and keep David Bauer behind them in P7. Now Robert Abrams is up to P5. Logan McKenzie is in P6. And they head on through once again. But well, at this point, you can imagine that David Bauer will be thinking to himself, right, I've got to get my elbows out versus McKenzie, because all he's doing now is keeping me at bay from hunting down Abrams as they make the way out of the final corner and onto another lap. None of them decide to come into the pits here. Well, of course, we do now have the reference points of which Connor Agitella and Jerome Bajulas both into the pits as Gherkin Demir comes on in, and this is for an early scheduled stop going for the undercut as well, and he'll drop a long way down the order, but at the same time this could give him some major opportunities later in the race in terms of not being in those battles which other drivers may have. Meanwhile, up front, we look to Michael Hendricks here, your race set leader overall, and in the Alpha class, he's currently 7 tenths clear of Francois Schinck. And in the last couple of laps, Schinck has been matching Hendricks' pace, but at the same time, Schinck's been continually staying within the distance of a second or less. And I think what this effectively means for Schinck is, whilst he was passed early on for the lead by Hendricks, it's not as though that lead is running away from him as they make the way down through turn number 6. Now, as they come through the long left-hander here, we can see that Shepka behind is not really falling away either. This top three in 3 different machines, which is what we love to see when it's a Veloster up front, then a Elantra P2 and a Civic in P3. They're all right now exhibiting their different characteristics, but I think for Shepka, the key thing here is how could he get himself between the 2 drivers in front on strategy? Can he potentially upset the Apple car, or can he just simply jump ahead of them through strategy? Those are all the things he'll be running through in his mind. Meanwhile, we look back to the battle for P6, and here is Logan McKenzie trying to hold off David Batten, doing so rather successfully as they make their way up towards turn number 8, and now Robert Abrams is very gradually creeping away. It's only a 10th a lap or so, but it's enough to give him safety and push on for P5 as they make their way out of turn number 8 and up towards 9. As they head into left-hander, we're hearing that Jesse Butters has had to jump to the pit. There's been an incident for Jesse Butters, I think a whack to the wall somewhere on circuit, and he's lost out quite significantly after what's looking to be a strong performance, albeit they'll be doing repair work on the car, but will they be able to get it repaired? In fact, I think there's a retirement for Jesse Butters. We have had that confirmation of a retirement, which is very unfortunate for the Delta driver who had such a strong start to today's racing. But as we near the halfway point here, we can see this battle for P5, P6 is continuing. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, John Lauzon, he's yet to take his pit stop. He's had to come from effectively the back of the field after that upset of the bus stop chicane on lap number 1. And now his next target is Aaron Lahr in front as they make the way down towards the braking zone for turn number 1. Now, the Beaver Buzz driver at this point won't be going for the move. There's no point going for the move before the S's for the simple reason then you're gifting all the straight line speed to the driver behind because they'll have your toe. But now Lauzon will be looking for the move as they make the way up the hill, and we ride on board with the Talk Steer Racing driver of Aaron Lahr looking back from the gearbox as he heads on through turns 2, 3 and 4 and heads onto the straightway up towards the chicane. You can see here John Lauzon quite a way back, in fact 4 tenths back and inching closer now that they're on the full straight. But the return, it does look like Aaron Lahr running a little bit less rear wing by comparison and gaining on these straights for the most part. And perhaps that's Aaron Lahr's secret technique here in turns, or having a bit less downforce in the car. It perhaps doesn't make the car as hooked up in the corners, been returned on the straights. He's just able to run away, but he won't be running away if he makes a mistake through turn 5, which he's just done. And as they make the way towards turn number 6, understeering a little bit there at turn number 5, Lauzon looks around the outside, but he can't really find it this time as they come through the left-hander and now up towards the right-hander of toe corner they go. Daniel Smith just in front of them, and Daniel Smith starting to break away a little bit as these two fight for P11, and Aaron are trying to hold on at the moment as they make the way out of toe corner, and now down the back straight they charge once again. But can John Lauzon find the move here? He creeps out to the inside, he thinks about it now. Is Lauzon going to send it from a distance? Well, I think he's considering licking the stamp, but I don't think he's got any first class stamps in reserve, and instead is waiting for a later lap in order to go for the move because he was thinking about it, I think worried about the risk given the pit stops are upcoming, and he might be deciding instead to come into the pit sooner rather than later in order to make the jump. Meanwhile, whilst all this is going on, we've just had a new fastest lap, indeed the fastest lap we've seen today outside of what is qualifying, in fact, over the course of qualifying in the race, and that is from Shepka. Matt Shepka in P3 has just set a 56.84, the fastest lap that anybody has turned here, and he is absolutely flying this Shepka as we look to the P3 driver who is hunting down Francois Schinck, and I think he's been saving it all up for this point in the race, with pit stops being on the cards now for our top 3, indeed for all of our top 10 drivers. If they haven't taken pit stops already, I think now Shepka showing the signs that he may be coming in soon and trying to deliver those laps to put some pressure on the top 2 in front and perhaps get them to pit earlier than him, upset their strategies, or at least take away the confidence they have in terms of keeping him behind. But as they make the way up towards turn number 6, Shepka, you can see that on the brakes very aggressively in the Honda. Meanwhile, Schinck having to be a little bit more gradual and careful with the brakes on the Elantra. We do know that the Elantras in particular really do suffer from a brake wear and a tyre wear problem as they go deeper and deeper into the races. More so the tyres rather than the brakes, but the car becomes very sensitive on the front tyres as we go deeper and deeper into the race, particularly around the 40-minute mark onwards, that's where we normally see the Elantra's pace fall away compared to its peers. We saw that in particular at Imola, where all of our Elantra drivers in the end who were trying to push after one another almost hit a brick wall that said to them, you can't push any further, and that's because the tyres were off, and those who had protected the tyres in the opening 20 minutes suddenly were absolutely flying by comparison, and I think that's what Schick's trying to do now. He's trying to protect the car to give himself some more pace at the end of the race to hunt down Hendricks, who in turn in the Veloster has got a lot more tyre to play with. Shepka, most importantly, has the most tyre to play with, because we know the Honda Civic is very strong in tyre degradation. It has been all season, and that's what Shepka can do. He can push much harder compared to the two in front of him as they make the way towards the end of lap 16 turned under race conditions. Meanwhile, as they make the way on down, we look a bit further back here to McKenzie, who continue to follow his teammate Robert Abrams, and Abrams not really breaking away after getting into P5 here after working with his teammate. And as they make the way through the final corner, well, David Bauer not responding by coming into the pits. In fact, he's falling back a little bit. I think David Bauer trying to do some fuel saving now to jump ahead of the pair later on. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see Dom Savio into the pits, creeping his way on in there from the lead of the Delta class, and I think he will relinquish the lead of the class back to Connor Achatella at some point based on the run of form of all the drivers. But as they continue to press on through, we'll have to wait to see whether that's the case. With Daniel Smith now in a bit of no man's land here for Torque Steer Racing, not really closed up to the back of Justin Rhodes and not breaking away from Aaron Lahr. In fact, I would say he's falling backwards slightly to Aaron Lahr, given he lost 3/10 on that last lap. He's actually been losing about a tenth a lap on average versus his teammate from Torque Steer Racing as they make the way through turn number 4. Now as they come onto the straightaway here up towards the bus stop chicane, you see that John Lauzon by comparison not really putting any pressure on anymore versus Aaron Lahr compared to what he was doing previously, where he was trying to get his nose in left, right and centre, but nobody looking to make that sign of that pit stop. And I think that's the problem here for John Lauzon. He needs to think about pitting sooner rather than later, unless he's trying to do the complete opposite of what he did at Mid-Ohio and is go for the ultimate overcut, or just going long as we used to refer to it in motorsport, as he makes his way down towards turn number 6, and as he heads into the braking zone here, rolling his way through the left-hander. Well, number 77 driving the Beaver Buzz machine runs a bit wide onto the grass slightly, but he's not losing any pace, and Eric Statzer behind him almost replicating the same as Aaron Lahr goes a bit deep there into toe corner. That keeps John Lauzon just behind him as they make the way out of toe and up towards heel. I think Lauzon's going to be grateful for the fact that he does have the slipstream with Daniel Smith in front of him, and that's giving him a bit more momentum in the run up towards the next corner. As they make the way through turn number 8 and up towards 9, you can see John Lauzon really pushing the limits there in terms of going a bit wide and trying to carry as much speed. And Aaron Lahr, by comparison, not really being over aggressive with the car, just focusing on keeping it nice and simple. As we hear that Fernando Takahashi has had to jump to the pits due to an instant out on circuit. Repair work to the car is needed. Now as we see our 4 drivers here make the way into the final corner, will any one of them peel on into the pits? Nope, none of them coming in. They all decide to stay on out, so nobody deciding to reveal their hand just yet, but someone's got to pit soon, because they can't all keep going like this unless they're all planning to pit together, which I think for all the drivers would really potentially surprise them. We would normally expect to see Lauzon throw a different card into the mix here as he makes his way out to turn 1 up towards 2, but he is getting closer here to the back of Aaron Lahr. Could there be the signs of an overtake on the cards this lap, given he's much closer he has been over the last 3 to 4 laps? And as we ride on board the gyro here in the roll bar of the car, you can see getting closer. Aaron Lahr going defensive and using Smith there in order to create what is essentially a box to put Lauzon in terms of the two teammates working together. And in fact, in the end, Smith and Lahr keeping Lauzon at bay, but Lauzon definitely looking for the move on this lap. I think he's coming in on this lap or the next one, and he's now wanting to go all in, turn it up to 100% for 1 lap to see if he can make the move before he comes into the pits as they make the way down towards turn number 6. But you can see Aaron Lahr here going defensive into turn 6. He knows, I think he suspects that Lauzon's coming in this lap, and he doesn't want to give the position up. He wants to keep Lauzon at bay to frustrate him a little bit and make him use a bit more fuel. But Lauzon comes in very hot there into toe corner, almost just bringing it to a dead stop right on corner apex there, and that shows you the confidence, the professional braking technique that we see from John Lauzon. Indeed, all of our drivers, but Lauzon in particular, he just has this thing where he'll go so late on the brakes and the car will still stop dead on time. It looks like he's going to make contact with the driver in front, but he just knows how to get the car stopped. As into the pits, I look out my commentary box, we know it's transwashing from P2. He's come on in, and he is the first of our leaders in that top 3 group to come on in for their mandatory pit stop. Now as we continue to ride on board here with John Lauzon, will he peel off into the pits after this corner? Will he start to signal himself moving over to the right, as we've also got into the pits what is there. Robert Abrams and also Logan McKenzie a bit further up front. We can also see here Lau's on in. Our prediction was correct. He comes on in behind Justin Rhodes, and as they all make the way on in, well, here is Francois Schenk right at the end of the pit lane. We've got the perfect pit box, and we can see Daniel Smith carries on through behind with his teammate Aaron Lard behind. But as they come through turn number 1, now we're waiting to see how Schenk comes out. Does he come out in clear air? He does. He leaves the pit box, and as he does, he's got plenty of track to himself. With the next driver coming through, it's Connor Achatella in P13 who's taking his pit stop. Speaking of Achatella, what about Eric Statzer? And we can see here Statzer currently in the pit lane, and I think Achatella will come on through to retake the lead of the class. Meanwhile, Logan McKenzie making his way out the pit lane. There's Robert Abrams coming on through as well. And Robert Abrams losing out versus his teammate. But what's more pressing here, look at this from Jerome Bajulaz. Well, Bajulaz has made the jump through the undercut and staying behind Connor Achatella. Bajulaz has jumped ahead of Robert Abrams, and this is not good news for Yellow Flag Motorsports. I think they'll feel as though they had done it and they jumped ahead of everyone on the strategy. But now Robert Abrams once again finds himself having to fight his way past drivers as he makes his way back out on circuit on his second stint. And meanwhile, Logan McKenzie is up the road, and McKenzie will do everything he can to help out. But the problem for Robert Abrams here is when he's the major championship contender, he's the one who needs to be ahead of this group and really limiting the damage that he's going to receive from Francois Schenk, who has come out effectively ahead of Robert Abrams after all of this by a sizable margin up in P7, but the gap between the two of them is 18 seconds. And speaking of coming on into the pits, we also have Micah Hendricks here coming on in from the lead and Shepka behind. And where will Schenk come out compared to the two of them? That's the big question. As meanwhile, James Carr comes on around to lead a lap of this race. He's decided to go a bit long. He's done some fuel saving, and the breakfast for dinner drive's going for that extra bonus point. As we can see David Bout also coming on through with behind him there Fernando Takahashi, who is a lap down after they've done the repair work to the car. But as he comes on through, the big question is, where is Francois Schenk? Well, here he comes as he makes his way through turn number 10 and in towards 11. Has he done enough, Francois Schenk, in order to be able to hold on? When we looked at the blimp camera, and I don't think that's going to give us a very good perspective. In fact, it will give us an idea as he makes his way, and you can see drivers making their way on out of the pit lane. But where is Mika Hendricks of all of it? Well, Hendricks is coming out the pit lane, and there is Hendricks by comparison. So Schenk has lost a corner, but look at Shepka as well. Shepka comes out of the pit lane, and he jumps ahead of Francois Schenk, and he's done it. The Torquestead Racing driver has jumped ahead of Schenk, moved up into what is effectively P2 as they make the way through turn number 3 and up towards 4. But the American has made his way on through, and now can he hunt down Hendricks for the win of this race, or will he find himself having to play more rear guard action and defending versus Schenk? Well, I think for Hendricks, he'll feel as though the job is done here as long as he puts in a couple of good outlaps and then matches the pace of Shepka all the way to the end. As Shepka goes a little bit deep there for the bus stop chicane on slightly cold tyres after they've been stationary in the pit lane for some time. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we of course talked about Jerome Bajulaz jumping ahead of Robert Abrams. And you can see here how Achatella on the offensive versus McKenzie, and Bajulaz holding off Abrams behind. But we still have James Carr, David Bower to pit, the top two on our timing tower right now, and they are going to come out somewhere around this, if not ahead or behind it. We'll have to wait to see exactly where they fit into the equation, as everybody else has taken their mandatory pit stop now as they make the way underway for the final 21 minutes away racing here at the Glen. But as we see Jerome Bajulaz holding on to P8 for the time being, the challenge for him now is he's got to try and find a way to clear the Delta leader of Achatella. If he cannot, then that's only going to compound his woes and mean that he's going to be fighting with Robert Abrams all the way to the end rather than leaving the problem behind. But as they come out of turn number 7 and up towards turn number 8, they charge into the pits comes James Carr, and so does David Bout, and we will expect that Hendricks is going to come on through quite comfortably, as here comes Hendricks through turn number 10 and up towards 11 he goes. But behind them, look at this, Shepka's not breaking away from Schenk at all, and Schenk is all over the back of the Honda driver as they make the way to the timeline. Now we know that Carr and Bout are going to come up behind all this based on when they came into the pits and the relative gaps, but where are they going to fit into the battles behind? That's the big question. And where is Logan McKenzie? Well, here comes McKenzie, and James Carr is already leaving the pit lane, making his way out, so he's going to re-emerge in P4 quite comfortably. But then where will David Bower come out into the mix? Is he going to come out amongst these drivers, or will he come out behind them? Well, Bower's leaving the pit lane now. Here he goes, and it's going to be very close here as they make the way in towards turn number 1. But Bajulaz and company have already come through. So David Bauer will come up behind all of them in what is effectively P9, and that's how the field now lies as they make the way underway for the final 20 minutes. All the mandatory pit stops are complete, and now David Bauer has the hard-pressed job of trying to cut his way past Robert Abrams, Jerome Virgilez, Connor Achatella and Logan McKenzie to get himself back into the top 5. But indeed, all 4 of these drivers in front of him are battling hard, and nobody is showing any signs of restraint. As they make the way through the chicane once again, McKenzie has the horrible task of keeping everyone at bay, and Robert Abrams there going very deep at the bus stop chicane in a huge waft of dirty air over the 3 cars in front of him. I think that dirty air has just really upset the front end of the car in terms of the aero balance, whereas he makes his way out of 5 and down into 6. You can see already Bauer behind. He's trying to go on the offensive and getting the move done early here once he's bringing those tyres back up to temperature. Meanwhile, further behind, we can see John Lowes on here. He's made his way past Jesse Bodas, who's a lap down and respecting the blue flags. But as they make the way through turn number 6, we can see that Lowes on all over the back of Smith as they make the way out of chute corner and up towards toe. But as they head into turn number 7, now Lowes on will have to try and force the issue here with Smith, and we know that Smith can make that Veloster very wide when he needs to as they come out of the corner and now onto the back straight. As they charge them down, we look from them to the battle for P2, and this is Shepka versus Schink as they make the way out of the final corner and on to the next lap. Hendricks at the front of the camera. He goes past our cameraman, looking comfortable up front, centre 57.1. Meanwhile, Shepka at 57.1. Schink a personal best of 56.9. Schink definitely wants to get this move done. Meanwhile, John Lowes on up the inside of Smith there through turn number 9 and up towards 10 they charge. Now can Lowes on get the job done? No. You can see there the acceleration in the lower gears of the Veloster Plus, also that more natural outside line for Smith, keeping him ahead as they make the way into the final corner here, staying close. And as they come through the right-hander, well, we can see Lowes on trying to do everything he can in order to get on through, but I think now he's got to wait a little bit longer. Meanwhile, Schink versus Shepka, and Shepka on the inside, they're defending on the inside, but Schink coming on through in the end, and Francois Schink is now up into P2. Meanwhile, behind them, well, here's the battle between Achatella and McKenzie as they make the way in the battle for P5, and well, you can imagine here the Delta driver wants an overall top 5, but can he get it? He looks down the outside as they head onto the brakes here. It's side by side, door to door through the chicane, and as they come through, oh goodness me, and Robert Abrams is off. He's off circuit at the bus stop chicane and returns. He doesn't make his way to the wall, but as he comes on through, is there a problem with the car? And Robert Abrams is into the pits. The car has not held up, and I think something has broken as Robert Abrams has come on in, and it's all going in the wrong direction for Yellow Flag Motorsports. Robert Abrams is in the pit with repair work. I think there's a broken piece on the suspension, and that's why he's had to come off. Meanwhile, we can see Logan McKenzie, after being passed by Achatella, is now seeing a field day passes being attempted on him by Jerome Virgilez. This is not the way they want the championship to go. This is going to have major implications in both the team's championship and also the drivers' championship. And Robert Abrams, we can confirm they've had to retire the car, so he will not be finishing any higher. Assuming that Spencer Cockaine's able to finish this race, he won't be finishing any higher than P19, and that is a disaster with only one more round to go, and that could be the end of the championship, depending on how the points are calculated. We'll give you an update, of course, after this race, how they stand going into the season finale, but it is not good news for Robert Abrams whatsoever. And Francois Schink right now, if he hasn't been told the news, I can imagine the crew chief will not want to tell him the news for the simple reason they'll want him to win this race. They will not want him to take his foot off the gas whatsoever, as McKenzie now has it all to do. He has to try and keep everybody behind him at bay, try and get the place back of Achatella to give Yellow Flag Motorsports a chance in the team's championship as they make the way out of turn 1 and up towards 2. But this really has taken a dark turn for one team as they make the way underway, and only 16 minutes left plus the final lap. Meanwhile, behind will David Bauer right now for breakfast for dinner. If he's aware of this, he'll be told he's got to give it everything. It's the same for Jerome Virgilez. Viva Plus Energy and breakfast for dinner will now be told you have got to give it everything. You've got to take places as they make the way up towards the bus stop chicane. You can see Virgilez on the inside of McKenzie here, but he can't quite find it. But McKenzie finding the space on the outside to inside versus Achatella, who defends hard here as they make the way in towards turn number 5. And Achatella continues to show obstinance as they make the way down through 5 and up towards 6. But look at Virgilez here. He's trying to capitalise as they make the way into the left-hander chute corner. But no way through right now, and Virgilez has to wait once again as we ride on board with the number 99 driver. And you see as they make the way out of turn number 6, all of them using every micrometer of width of the circuit in order to be able to make those moves to carry an extra mile an hour of speed as they come on out. But as they make their way out to turn 7 down towards 8, the problem for Jerome Bajulaz is if it was the case that Achatella was not in front of McKinsey, I think he'd feel good for the move as McKinsey looks at the move on Achatella, who gives him the space on the inside. But in return here now it becomes the battle on the brakes uphill into turn 9, and Achatella stays safe. But you see McKinsey there outside. Bajulaz trying to get his nose in, not quite able to, and has to back out slightly. But Achatella really knows where to place that Veloster in front as he makes it so difficult to pass. And McKinsey's now going to try and go outside to inside here through 10-11. He gets it around, and McKinsey there gets the move done for the time being for P5, as now Bajulaz has to literally ride the back of Achatella out to turn number 11, and now he's going to look for the overspeed here as they drag race their way up towards turn number 1. It's Hyundai and Hyundai, it's Veloster versus Elantra as they make their way down towards turn 1. Bajulaz on the inside of your picture here as they make their way into the right-hander, and Bajulaz is going to try to get the deal done and then use the speed of his car plus the slipstream of McKinsey to get away from Achatella on the run through the S's. David Bauer meanwhile now thinks, hey, I can play as well, and as they come through turns 2, 3 and 4, Bauer's not able to come through. Instead he has to wait his turn and get back into line here as they make their way up towards the bus stop chicane. The 4 of them in quick succession here as they head on down the flash of lights there from Bajulaz trying to distract McKinsey as they head into the braking zone. But I think McKinsey only going to go more defensive and take the speed out of the race, and because of that, as you can see, David Bauer literally clambering over the apex curves there, the first part of the bus stop chicane, but not able to find the move. Meanwhile, further back, John Lauzon getting closer and closer to the back of Daniel Smith in the hunt for P10. But not able to make a move yet versus the Veloster driver as they come down towards turn number 5. But as they roll the way on down, those are the 2 closest battles out on circuit at this time. We will keep you informed, of course, if anything else changes and any other battles really start to emerge. But at this moment, it's the battle for P10 and the battle for P5 that are running strong. And well, in that battle for P5, we ride on board the gearbox here of Logan McKinsey, who continues to frustrate Jerome Bajulaz as they make the way all the way down the back straight. You can see McKinsey doing a little bit of a weave there in order to try and break the toe, and this is only frustrating when it's Bajulaz for us. Dave Bauer goes all the way around the outside of the pair of them there. A bit of contact between Bajulaz and Bauer, but the key thing is Bauer's gone round the outside at turn number 8 and up the inside into 9. They rub together through the left hand, and now who is going to have the greater momentum out of the corner? I think it's Bajulaz, but Bauer's still going to keep his nose in there into turn 10. He's not going to give this up. He is going to literally plaster that car to the apex curve and make Bajulaz have to go all the way round, and then as they make way in towards turn number 11, David Bauer once again just cannot get the move finished. It was 90% of the way there, almost 95% of the way there to being done, but Bajulaz somehow stays ahead as they make the way onto lap number 25. 12 minutes to go, and Bauer's going to try to go around the outside into turn 1 as Bajulaz literally makes that car so wide, and both of them run a bit wide there, coming out to 1 and on towards the S as they charge. And as they make the way out the hill, this is brilliant racing between the trio as they head on through the S's. This is giving Logan McKinsey all the space he needs to run away, but I don't think they notice that right now. I think they only know one thing, and that is battling one another. But as they make the way out towards the bus stop chicane, this time Bauer's going to go outside to inside. Onto the brakes they go. Bajulaz holds the inside, but he can't outbrake his rival. But David Bauer overcooks it through the chicane, goes deep, and Bajulaz gets back ahead. And now Achatela's going to try and use the grip. He's got to go around the outside as they make the way on through, but no way through. Meanwhile, Daniel Smith side by side with John Lauzon as they come out the chicane, and whilst John Lauzon got his nose ahead initially, Daniel Smith retakes P10 of Lauzon. He holds on here for Torque Steer Racing as they come on out of the corner and down the hill they charge, but Lauzon here is going back for the move into shoot corner. Lauzon on the inside, Smith on the outside, but Smith able to use the camber of the road here and also the outside line to his advantage as they make the way up towards turn number 7, and as they head into the braking zone, John Lauzon right now literally having to go all the way around the houses to get the move done. Meanwhile, Jerome Bajulaz versus David Bauer. Bauer up the inside now into turn number 8 and into hill corner. That's a very firm move being made there by David Bauer. But as they head up the hill, you can see Achatella also looking for the move. Onto the brakes, all 3 of them go, and as they come through turn 9, I think David Bauer's finally got this done. He's hooked it up out of 9, but Bajulaz is going to have one last crack at it into turn 10, or is he? No, he backs out, and I think David Bauer has finally got himself ahead. But of course, the big question is, can he hold on to it, given how quickly Bajulaz is going on to his 6th? Meanwhile, in the battle for P10, Lauzon is ahead. You can see they're going round the outside ahead after emerging out of turn number 9 on the faster line. And as they make their way into turn number 11, I think Jan Lauzon has got ahead for the time being as they make their way past our camera and head up towards another lap. But as they come on through, we look back to Logan McKenzie and look at the gap. McKenzie's got 2.5 seconds now versus the Bauer Virgilas Achatella battle as they make the way up the hill, and David Bauer holding on here. And you can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to give equal amounts of slipstream to both of the rivals here as they make the way through turn 3. There's contact between the two of them as they come past the curb camera at turn 4, and as they make the way onto the straight here, we can see that Achatella trying to tuck in behind Bauer, trying to get the overspeed to go outside to inside, but in return has to back off with Jerome Virgilas there staying ahead. Meanwhile, John Lauzon side by side here with Smith as they make the way into the chicane. Lauzon's going to try and go all the way around the houses in order to get it done on the inside, and as they come on through, I think we can see that Smith, they're having to back off a little bit, and John Lauzon are finally getting it hooked up, bringing it around and bringing it home at that P10 on this lap. Or will he, of course? Could we see Smith coming back a little bit later? I think Smith may just be backing off for a brief moment here before trying to go for a counter attack, but at long last it has taken us the best part of 15 minutes to see these two battles finally come to some sort of conclusion. I don't think it's so long before another battle's on the cards. However, keep my eyes on the gap between Francois Schink and Matt Shepka. It started to close back up after it widened up, and also Bauer versus Virgilas is now going on to its second act as they make the way down through turn number 8 here, and you can see it's Achatella who's putting the pressure on, as meanwhile Hendricks has just set the fastest lap place, in fact back-to-back fastest laps, a 56.8 only months ago, and now 56.765. Hendricks is absolutely flying up front and trying to break away from the rest of the field and make sure this race is off to pasture, for as we can see Bauer here now trying to break away from Virgilas. Virgilas has got more worry, I think, from Achatella behind than he has with regards to Bauer in front of him as they make the way out of the final corner and on to the next lap. 8 minutes still to go, still at least another 4 laps to be turned by drivers, if not more, and as they make the way onto what for them is lap number 27, the battling continues, and behind them Smith, we said earlier, maybe trying to come back a little bit later on now. He is staying close behind John Lauzon and in the tow here. He will gain to an extent, but I wonder whether it's just simply right now trying to do a bit of fuel saving and then go on the offensive right at the end, where he can use all of the engine, all the modes and every bit of power that the car's got available, instead of trying to make the move now as he makes his way in through the S's. But as they do, we look from them back to our top 3, in particular the battle for P2, and this is going to be Schink versus Shepka, and as they make the way in towards tow corner here at turn number 7, you can see that Shepka getting closer now. That last lap from Francois Schink, a 57.64, from Shepka a 56.96. I wonder if Francois Schink's tyres are starting to go, because that pace, well, everybody else who's on strong laps right now in this top 3, so Hendricks a 56.7 that last lap, Shepka a 56.9. I think Schink is starting to feel the tyre drop off here in the Elantra. We said it would happen quite early if they haven't been protecting the tyres, but I think Schink's been doing as much tyre protection as he can, but I think for all his hard effort, now the tyres are just simply starting to go off the cliff, and this is where Shepka has that opportunity with 7 minutes remaining and 3 more laps as a minimum to be turned. This is where he has the chance to strike. He's not going to have a better one as they head into the final corner here and go on to the next lap. Meanwhile, we look back to the battle for P6 between Bauer, Virgilas and Achatella, and as they make the way in towards turn number 9, we can see here no change between the trio anymore. It does look as though all running nose to tail and all waiting to go for those moves right at the end of the race, and just getting themselves set up for the time being and not trying to force the issue anymore. And I think, to be fair to Virgilas in particular, but also David Bauer to a major extent, they have both taken a huge amount out of the tyres, and Achatella as well in battling for position. In fact, is Achatella coming into the pit lane? It is, and could this potentially see him lose the lead of the Delta class here right at a critical juncture, right towards the end of this race? Where's Dom Savio from comparison? Well, here is Dom Savio. I think Savio is going to come on through to take the lead of the Delta class here, and I think this is going to be a shock to the system for him as he comes across the line. Achatella still in this pit box as they make the way on through, and as they head all the way down. In fact, I think Achatella's just got a drive-through penalty for track limits and misdemeanors, and Dom Savio takes the lead of the Delta class here. Behind him is Jesse Bodas, who is a lap down. Unfortunately, you could imagine if Bodas was on the lead lap, we'd be starting to see a major battle, but the point being that Dom Savio is now your Delta leader with a limited amount of time left. Meanwhile, Daniel Smith battling with John Lauzon here. The battle for P8 continues. In fact, for P9 it is, as they make the way down towards the bus stop chicane. Nothing between the two of them here. Smith on the right, Lauzon on the left, but Smith has to tuck on in there. John Lauzon being able to outbrake his rival and carry more speed into the chicane comfortably as they head into turn number 5. As they head on down, we look to P2 here. Francois Schenk and Shepka continuing to close on that. And in fact, we do ride on board here with Shepka as he tries to look for that move for P2 right at the end of this race as they come on through the left-hander of turn number 9. But as they make the way up towards 10, you can see Shepka close, but not close enough to look for that potential move at this brief moment as they make the way out to the corner and in towards turn number 11. And if Shepka can find it, he'll go for it. There's no doubt about that as they come out of 11 and on to the next lap. And with just over 4 minutes remaining, we will be seeing 3 more laps from all of our drivers. We can confirm that now as we see Shepka here staying close, but just not able to find the move at this time versus rival. But meanwhile, off camera, we can tell you that Achatella has found his way past Eric Statzer, or has he, as we cut over to them in the battle for P12. And well, Eric Statzer trying right now to make sure that Achatella can't just simply come on through and break away and chase after Dom Savio. The gap between the two of them at 4.5 seconds. But I think Achatella may have got this done as they make the way out of the corner. In fact, we look back to the battle for P2, and there's Shepka looking on the outside versus Schenk on the inside into the bus stop chicane. He can't find it as Jerome Bajulaz into the pit. He's coming in. I think that's for a drive-through penalty, and that is going to drop him out of the fight with David Bout and also Logan McKinsey. And that's unfortunate for Jerome Bajulaz, but they've been running so hard, and it is a drive-through, we can confirm. And those drive-through penalties starting to sting. And look who's coming on through the first corner to join Jerome Bajulaz now. It is Connor Achatella here, and as they make the way out to 1 and up towards 4, well, I think the thing for the number 55 driver is he'll look ahead of him and think, right, I'm going after you. But Eric Statzer behind will be thinking, no, actually, I want to fight you, thank you. Don't worry about the guy ahead of you as they make the way through the S's, whereas they come past turn number 4. Eric Statzer very close behind. Achatella having to go defensive here as they head down towards turn, well, in fact, down towards the bus stop chicane as they make the way into the right, into left here. You can see Statzer having to back off briefly. He thinks about it, but not able to go for the move through the chicane. He's going to have to try and find another way on around. Meanwhile, Daniel Smith continues to stay ahead of John Lauzon for P8 as they come out of turn number 6 and down towards 7 they go. But you can see Smith now has just got no tyre left in the car. Lauzon, by comparison, I don't know how he's done it, but he's still got so much grip to play with in that Elantra as they make the way out of turn number 7. Well, Smith's frustrating the Beaver Buzz Energy driver, that's for certain. But as they make the way down the back straight, Lauzon's going to look on the inside, and Smith here, I don't think he's going to have an answer this time onto the break stay battle. Lauzon comes on through, gets his nose ahead, but Smith's going to try and hold it all the way round, and Lauzon gives him the space. Now it's a drag race up the hill and into the left-hander turn 9 they go, and Smith on the inside, Lauzon on the outside. Now for Lauzon, he's going to look for the cutback here, try and get the momentum out the corner to make the attack into turn number 10, but it's a short run to 10, and I don't think he's quite timed this perfectly. He's close to it as they make the way through 10, but indeed he has to stay behind. Meanwhile, talking about staying behind, here's one driver who doesn't want to stay behind the other, and that is Matt Shepka in the red Honda there on the right of your picture, going up the inside to outside of Francois Schenk through the chicane. And as they come through turn number 5, Schenk defending hard. He's only got one more lap after this to hold on to P2 and set himself up as best as possible in order to go into that championship final with a huge advantage given the retirement of Robert Abrams. And as they make the way down through turn number 6, well, Schenk will want to hold on to P2, because if he loses that P2 to Shepka, it's going to only put a little bit of a dent in his aspirations to really seal up the championship with 1 round to go, or at least it gives himself such an advantage that way it would require absolutely adverse circumstances for Abrams to potentially come on back. As they make the way on down the back straight, Schenk holding on for now. Meanwhile, Lauzon versus Smith. Again, they head into the bus stop chicane, and Smith just seems to have that extra 10%. Although I say that Lauzon looks the inside into turn 5, but it's a dummy. He's not close enough. Although I say that Smith goes wide, he responds to it, and as they make the way out the corner, John Lauzon this time gets ahead through Smith, making an error in turn number 5. And as they come through turn number 6, now can Lauzon hold on with one more lap after this one on the cards. Meanwhile, Eric Statzer still on the 6 of Connor Achatella as they make the way into the left-hander of what is turn number 6, and down towards 7 they charge. Jesse Butters ahead, who's a lap down, of course, and then we do have what is Jerome Bajulaz just a bit further up the road in P11 overall as they make the way into turn number 7. I can tell you, whilst this is going on, the leader of Micah Hendricks has gone on to the final lap, 6.5 seconds clear of Francois Schenk, but Schenk has still got that pressure from Shepka. The gap now 6 tenths And as we cut over to it here, this is the battle for P2 we're referring to, where Shink for Beaver Buzz Energy is trying to hold on versus Torque Steer Racing's Matt Shepka as they make the way past turn number 4 very shortly and up towards the bus stop chicane they charge. But as they come on through here with the clock about to strike an hour, and indeed there it goes, it strikes an hour. It means the checker flag will be out next time we come around to the start finish line, or our leaders coming around I should say. All the battles are starting to calm down to an extent, although we do still have some unresolved, and this is the biggest one on circuit that's yet to be resolved. Can Shepka find his way into P2 when it's all said and done, or will he be thwarted and have to settle for the final step of the overall and also the Alpha podium as he makes his way down into turn number 6? Well, right now, Shink seems to be doing everything he needs to do to keep the Torque Steer Racing driver at bay, but it's the very last parts of the lap where we typically see that's where Shepka's able to get very close. This corner onwards is where the momentum shifts in Shepka's favour, but can he do enough this time? We're coming out to turn number 7, not close enough at the moment, the gap 3 attempts, and it is gradually being brought down, but only little by little, such as the Elantra straight line speed. And as they head into turn 9, Shepka not able to find the space. Meanwhile, Eric Stats are behind him, battling side by side with Affectionately into the chicane. Can't find his way on through as they make the way through that chicane in the battle for P12 overall. But as they come through the 2 Delta drives, they're battling for P2 in class. We do look from them to the leader of their class and overall, and that is Micah Hendricks. For as he comes through the final corner here, it's been a brilliant drive from start to finish. It hasn't been one without battles, but as he heads to the line, weaving from side to side, he knows he's done it. Mike Hendricks from Blue Flag Motorsports takes the win here at Watkins Glen ahead of Francois Shink in P2, who holds off Shepka to the line. Francois Shink P2, Matt Shepka P3, and then we have a brief while to go before we then see our next driver, James Carr here from Breakfast for Dinner. Not quite at the pace of the top 3, but still bringing home a deserved P4 there in the number 19 machine. He crosses the line. Then it's going to be Logan McKenzie who comes on through for Yellow Flag Motorsports to take a P5, a top 5 finish when all is said and done, as he makes his way across the line shortly, just ahead of David Bauer as they come to the line. There's David Bauer in P6 for Breakfast for Dinner, I think thinking what could have been today. And then in one of his stronger performances in the latter half of the season, Gurkhan Demir will bring home P7 for Torque Steer Racing. As we see in the rear of the picture, there is John Lauzon finishing just ahead of Daniel Smith in P8, Daniel Smith P9, and then it will be Dom Savio who comes across the line, your winner in the Delta class there. P10 overall, the privateer taking the win. Congratulations to him ahead of Jerome Bajulo's best the rest in P11, and it is Connor Achitella P12 ahead of Eric Statzer P13. Those two completing the Delta podium behind Dom Savio. Justin Rhodes will come on home P14 there. The Breakfast for Dinner driver not having the race that he wanted today. Nothing quite went his way as he comes out of the final corner here to complete his 60 minutes of Watkins Glen. And then we have some time to go before we'll have Aaron Lahr join us. In fact, here comes Aaron Lahr, P15 across the line. He'll be the last of our lead lap finishers as he crosses the line there. And well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to take a look at the race results, of course subject to any stewards' inquiries. So as we bring the results up on screen for you, after 60 minutes of racing today in our final Alpha round of the season, the feature race for round 12 of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 5 as brought to you at Watkins Glen International. We see Micah Hendricks there taking the overall win by 4.8 seconds ahead of Francois Shink, who came home in P2, and Matt Shepka coming home in P3. A brilliant battle between Shink and Shepka all the way through. Hendricks in that battle as well for some time, but then finally hooking up the pace and running off into the distance, and that is also, that top 3 is your Alpha podium. Then we have James Carr in P4, not quite on the pace of the top 3, but not falling back into the clutches of the rest of the field. A deserved P4 there ahead of Logan McKenzie, who had to drive as hard as possible and was raced to the absolute limit by David Bauer, Jerome Bajulas, and also Connor Achitella to bring home that P5. David Bauer P6 ahead of Gurkhan Demir P7 in a race which saw him drive very consistently and just pick up the places as they came to him. John Lauzon P8, Daniel Smith P9, and then Dom Savio with the win in the Delta class. Congratulations to the privateer in P10. Then Jerome Bajulas best the rest in P11 ahead of Connor Achitella P12, who would have potentially won in the Delta class if it were not for that late drive-through penalty that he had to serve due to the instant points he'd picked up. Eric Statzer P13, and also Jerome Bajulas, of course, picking up that drive-through penalty in P11. But with Eric Statzer P13, your Delta podium consists of Dom Savio on the top step, Connor Achitella on the second step, and then Eric Statzer on the third step, Justin Rhodes P14, again, not his day today, nor Aaron Lars in P15. And then we come to our drivers who finished a lap down, or more than one lap down, of Jesse Butters, a lap down in P16. Kirby Cavillion on his debut at P17 there, 2 laps down from the leaders. And as we continue to work our way down the standings there, Robert Abrams with that retirement, 10 laps from the finish, not the strongest performance from Robert Abrams, and indeed that retirement, which we saw something broke on the car at the bus stop chicane, and that means that P18 could see his championship hopes now hanging by a thin thread going into the season finale. Spencer Cockayne P19, Fernando Takahashi completes the top 20 with his retirement being 11 laps on the finish. Daniel Sedino with that early retirement, which effectively confirmed that it would be Connor Acheta who would take the championship in the Delta class today. Joe Camilleri P22, and then not making it to the grid in the end, Sam Boutwell P23 classified, and that's how they stand after round number 12. And of course, now speaking of the standings, let's come to those overall championship standings, and here they are after 12 rounds with drop scores accounted for. We can see that Francois Schenk now leads the championship on 599 points, ahead of Robert Abrams by a margin of 67 points. Now, what does this mean in practice, I hear you ask? Well, what it means is that for Francois Schenk, he has not quite sealed the deal with regards to the Drivers' Championship overall and in the Alpha class. He needs to score 3 points in the next round to be able to finish as champion. There's a maximum of 70 points up for grabs in the season finale, and Robert Abrams will need to pick up effectively all of those points. He will need to take the win, and then Francois Schenk will need to score 2 or less points to lose out right at the end. John Lauzon at P3 there on 474 points. I think that's a little bit of a mix-up with regards to numbers there. But John Lauzon is in at P3. We can confirm that ahead of Logan McKinsey P4, James Carr P5, and it's David Bauer P6. And we can see that battle to be in P3 in the championship continues to ever tighten. And how will it all conclude there? Who will be the best outside of our top 2? With then Mike Hendricks in P7 also getting into that mix. Only 3 points off of David Bauer. Joan Bajanaz in P8 there on 374 points. Not quite in the hunt for P3, but still looking to battle all the way to the finish with Connor Achitella there, who on 362 points today. And with Daniel Sedano's retirement, we can confirm that Connor Achitella has taken the maiden Delta Championship crown for Season 5 of the Alpha Touring Challenge. Congratulations to Connor Achitella. He has been absolutely unstoppable all season. And, well, it just goes to show you that when you put the practice, the time and the effort in, you continue to press on, you will bring those results on around. That's not to say nobody else does, but you'll remember that Achitella from the start was looking to build that pace and went into every round getting faster and faster and moving further up the grid, and that is his reward, the Delta Championship crown, 1 round early before the season finale. Matthew Shepka, P10 there, looking to get closer to Achitella as things press on. And then we have outside the top 10, Gokhan Demir in P11 ahead of Aaron Lahr P12, Justin Rhodes P13, Daniel Smith P14 on his return today, putting in a great performance. Daniel Sedano P15 now battling to hold on to second place in what is the overall championship, but effectively second place in the Delta Championship, we should say, ahead of Gus Blondell. Giovanni Romano, not in attendance today, drops to P17, Eric Stats to P18, Adrian Fedorowski P19, and Fernando Takahashi completing the top 20. And as we come outside our top 20, we have Wojciech Swierdorich, not in attendance today, although we would love to have seen him tear up the asphalt here at the Glen and see what he could do. Dom Serro win his win, going up to P22, Paul Mikolajczyk in P23, Travis Hall P24, Jesse Butters P25, and then Wiley Cox, Spencer Cockayne, Corey Fluke, Michael McLeod, and Alex Jensen to complete the top 30. And then outside of the top 30, but not to be forgotten about, from 31st to 42nd, now that we had 42 drivers participate in this series, albeit I think the standings do need a little bit of a refresh there going into the season finale. Jermaine Warren at P31, ahead of Jorge Zaniga, who you'll remember participated in a couple of rounds earlier on in the season, P32. Casey Nemitz P33, Jonathan Stroll P34, and then Scotty Lund P35. Brandon Vez, Sean Gerd, Joe Camilleri, Andrew Trickett, and Steve Hansel completing the top 40. And our debutants are Kirby Cavillion and Sam Belt were P41, P42. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, those are the standings. And what it effectively means is that we now have one more question up for grabs. Can Francois Schenk deliver the simple job of bringing it home at Road Atlanta and next time out in order to bring home the championship? Or will there be one last major turn in the story? Well, we won't find that out today because that's all we've got time for, and thank you very much for watching. And if you do want to know more about the Alpha Touring Challenge or the ATC, then why not check out our official website? That's alphatouringchallenge.wordpress.com. Alternatively, if you're more of a Discord user and you want to go to the heart and source of all the information, you can of course go to our official Discord, invite link available on screen to talk to the organisers and drivers. And indeed, I suspect the Season 6 will be on the cards in the near future. And if you're sat right there right now thinking you want to get signed up for Season 6, then go to the Discord and get yourself signed up nice and early. But as for what comes around, the season finale awaits us. Round number 13, the finale will be at Michelin Raceway, Road Atlanta, in the state of Georgia, in the United States of America. All the racing will occur as of Monday, the 10th of October, but we'll be bringing it to you as if it were live on Sunday, the 16th of October, 2022. Will it be Francois Schenck who comes home, our overall and our Alpha champion for Season 5, or will we see Robert Abrams bring alive all of his championship hopes at the final curtain and bring home a championship that seems to have swayed further and further from him as we've gone deeper and deeper towards the end? We'll find out then, but until then, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. We have been the Alpha Touring Challenge. I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain the Spit, your host and commentator. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.